All right, it's 7 o'clock. I'd like to call the meeting to order. We'll begin with the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Mic checks. We're not seeing anything on the screen, are we? Okay.
It is on Zoom.
Is this working?
As long as if it's green, it's on, I believe.
Okay, roll call. Oh, go ahead.
I'm not sure. Is it, can you hear?
Yeah.
Is it being amplified? It doesn't sound like it is.
Go, Scott. Yeah.
Can you hear me now?
Yep. This thing on?
All right, roll call, please.
Milnick,
Here.
Rebant,
Here.
Sherman,
Here.
Trumbull,
Here.
Pelton, and here, Merchant. Here. Stratton.
Here. Set and adjust the meeting agenda. Does anybody have any changes or additions to the meeting agenda?
No changes.
Can I have a motion to accept the agenda as printed?
Make a motion to accept the agenda as printed.
Seconded by Peltonen.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Declaration of conflict of interest pertinent to agenda items.
So, oh, go ahead.
I
No,
was just saying, I think we ought to have a conversation about that. So
Yeah.
just so everyone's clear on things. So
This point?
at this point, well, there's an agenda item that was a declared conflict at the last meeting about, so we should have I don't know, did you want to say anything, Katie, to start with that or no?
yeah. So just to address not only the public, but also like newer members to the PC to kind of give a backstory of all this and then where we are now. So the last meeting I was asked was pretty short notice to recuse myself. And I did, and I kind of regret doing that. And since then, I've had a lot of time to think about that and do some research of my own. I even reached out to some other planner and commissioners in surrounding townships, and they all seem to agree with me as well that I think that it's unfair. So the backstory, there's always going to be people that aren't happy and view things in a certain light, and all I can do is say what I know and try and prove myself. I do own a farm in Whitewater. I do own a farm market. I did come to the planning commission before I joined the board and talked about maybe us developing a ordinance for a winery. Will I open one someday? Maybe, but I have a long ways to go if I even want to do that. With that being said, a couple months later, I was asked and pursued to join the planning commission. Most people don't know, I was already before that time considering running for a position on the board, but that just didn't work for me and my family. So this opportunity came and I felt like I am a great person to represent agriculture. And that was part of the reasons I was sought after to join, is because nobody here represents that. And that's what I do for a living. So I joined, and Keith did put on the agenda for the wineries for that ordinance to be started. And when I joined, I did take that up because it just seemed right. Like, I'm the most experienced in that and the most passionate about that. So that's kind of where we are now. And I put a lot of work into this. And I guess where I feel that it's unfair, and I feel like you can take anything as simple as the fence ordinance. Like we want to write an ordinance for the fence in Whitewater. So any of us sitting here could say, well, we write the ordinance, but like, Michael, maybe you're going to put a fence up someday. So maybe you shouldn't speak on that. That's simple. And as far as complexity, we could even talk about STRs, which is I mean, it's controversial in our township right now. Any of us sitting on this board right now or on this commission have the potential to sublet our houses out after we write the ordinance. Whether we have intent to do that or not, nobody really knows. And how is that fair? I guess we all join this board to represent different parts of the community, living on the lake, owning a business in the community, agriculture, just being, so I guess if we're going to say that because it might affect you in the future, or you might benefit from this future, you can't help design that or have a say on that, then what are any of us doing here? I just feel like that's very unfair. Now, if in the future my business does decide that we're going to come here for a special use permit, that's totally different. Obviously, yes, that needs to be recused, and that's pretty evident to me. But I think that that's very unfair. And I mean, obviously, that's my opinion. Everybody's entitled to their opinion, but I want everybody to know why I'm not recusing myself, and for you guys to weigh in on it. You all can, and I respect your decisions. But I guess lastly, I want to say that, the big push is agriculture in Whitewater Township and keeping the rural character. And I'm here to tell you that nobody on this planning commission cares more about that than I do. I was raised in it. I'm born in it. It's what I do. And my grandfather's generation is long gone. There's a few of them left. My father's generation is on their way out. They're all retiring. The next generation of farming is right here. I'm in. And I only know a handful in our community that are going to continue it on. And if we don't have that representation and you're not allowing us to speak on that, I don't know what I'm doing here. And as far as I'm not saying that every opinion I have is right and everything I say about agriculture is right, but I can weigh in on I know most about it. And I'm going to do my best to represent the very few people that we still have left in it in our community.
Would anybody like to respond?
So I would just mention that the bylaws does speak to what a conflict of interest is, and it generally directs you to a specific request that is before the planning commission at any one time. It seems to be, I think the last time we had an issue, it was with Al Keaton and the approval of the High Point Golf Course, when there was some questions about his proximity to it and whether or not he could be objective in that he would be impacted by it directly. And there was a fair amount of discussion about that. I just think it needs to be on the table as to where we are, how this, I've heard comments and others, and, people can speak and aren't at the meeting. They don't necessarily know what happened or didn't happen. But so ultimately it says that the planning commission can, the question shall be put before the PC as to whether or not a conflict exists. I mean, that's what our bylaws say. So ultimately, if somebody wants to call the question, we can do that.
I agree. I think the conflict language, it's a slippery slope if you gave those examples. I mean, anybody could conflict out if you go to the nth degree. This is a discussion about language and adding to a body of language, not asking for action for language that's already been in our ordinance. And there's a big difference to me. And I think that you recusing yourself and having to talk from the public, even though you have all this expertise, would have been very beneficial to me because I am new in this, and I was just trying to wrap my head around a lot of these things. And I haven't been here for a lot of the discussions. So I agree that you shouldn't recuse yourself and be part of these discussions, especially after being completely transparent about your intentions and who you are. So
Thank you.
Scott?
Yeah, I support you being on not recusing yourself. Yes.
Rod, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, I would say that having your expertise is something we really need on this planning commission. The size of the community at 2,800 people, that isn't a lot of people to choose to come work for the township. And to have that expertise sitting here with us, I think you're making the right decision, and I support you not recusing yourself.
And I'll make it unanimous. I think you've been,
Excuse me.
Oh,
Not-
I'm so
Not
sorry,
unanimous
Denise.
yet.
Go ahead.
Yes, I appreciate all the work that you've done on developing this ordinance, and your passion for farming is evident. My concerns are that because you're here and we're going to maybe limit this to farms that are 1 mile apart, and whoever puts their application in first gets that 1 mile radius around them. So if you wanted to say, I won't do anything for 1 year, or we do a lottery when this is first adopted, and anybody that wants to have a cidery or winery within the next 2 years, because you don't know when you're going to want to do it either, that everybody throws their name in a hat and we draw them out. And then that way it would make it more impartial. It's not what you would do, it's the appearance of independence that reflects on all of us. And many times, people will say, oh, you're biased about that. You have an opinion and you express it, but naturally, I think most people have biases, and we're just held to a higher standard here, being on the planning commission. A public can make a public comment and they don't have to have that appearance of non-bias. So that's my concern. Many people who don't have farms really care about farming and farms, and we realize that they're not here for everyone's viewing, like I love the view. That's one of the things that people put on the master plan. They love the view of the openness of the township, and that's the view of the farmlands. But as a lot of farmers will say, we are not here for views, for your view. If you want a view, you buy it. We're here to farm and make money. So there's a conflict there, but my main concern is the impartiality, and helping to write a new ordinance. Like anybody else, they try to put in the things that they would like, and that may be more beneficial to you than another farmer. And that's where the bias is. So if you could say, like, I won't, for 1 year, I won't put in an application for a cidery or winery, I think people would go, okay, she's not doing it just for herself.
Can you clarify your position on whether she should recuse?
Well, it depends. If it's first come, first serve, then maybe you should recuse yourself, because then it wouldn't look like you were helping to write something specifically for your benefit. But I think that would be unfair to you. And if you know that you probably won't do something for a year, it would make it look like you are more independent of your viewpoints and your biases. But that's your decision. And like you find people that said that they supported your viewpoint, I found people who thought that you should recuse yourself. So, I mean, that's kind of where people come, they're coming down on both sides of it.
Well, I won't do that. I won't say that we'll wait a year. It's a long process. It already would probably take 2 years for anybody to do this. Even after it goes through our township board, it gets approved and in the books. it could be a 2 or 3 year process just to open your doors to the public. So I'm sorry, but I feel like that's very unfair. And with the mile radius concern and nobody else being able to do that, it does clearly state in there that if somebody within a mile wants to do that, they can come to the planning commission, and ask for a special use, and we could approve that dependent on where their location is and if we think it fits in within our standards and our protocols. So it does say a mile, but it also allows that to be modified if it works in the favor. So I mean, you're entitled to your opinion, and I understand. I said from the beginning, there are people that are going to see both sides of this.
Yeah. And in response to that, one of the things was traffic impact. So if you had one and then I live near you with, and I wanted one, then they say too much traffic in one
Not
area.
necessarily, if you did the research and the data and the traffic impact wasn't a problem, then no
Yeah.
problem.
Yeah. But the planning commission would have to decide. It wouldn't be just the state deciding. That's
And
what
the planning
that's what
commission and whoever's applying would do the research and present it and say, this
Yeah.
is the impact. So
Well, I think we're talking about something that hasn't even been approved yet. So,
Yeah. Could we get just another legal opinion on it? Because, I mean, that would be the easiest way to,
on recusal?
yeah. And,
does our bylaws say that the
Yeah.
planning commission can make the decision?
Yeah.
yeah,
It does.
I think it's a
If
majority
there's a
vote.
question whether a conflict of interest exists or not, the question shall be put before the PC.
Yeah. So that's all we have to do.
Okay.
And then whether it exists or not is a majority vote.
Okay. So we need a motion then. Yes?
I'm sorry, can you read the specific language of the
If there is a
contract?
question whether a conflict of interest exists or not, the question shall be put before the PC. Whether a conflict of interest exists or not shall be determined by a majority vote of the remaining members of the PC. I would take,
The definition of a conflict, though, you read that earlier, I thought. Is there several parts to it? I'm sorry. I thought that was just one.
well, there's actually three. An immediate family member is involved in any request for which the PC is asked to make a decision. Immediate family member is defined as spouse, mother, father, sister, brother, daughter, including adopted child. The PC member has a business or financial interest in the property involved in the request or has a business or financial interest in the applicant's company, agency, or association. Or the PC member owns or has a financial interest in property that is required to receive a notice of public hearing as required by the Whitewater Township zoning ordinance on an application under consideration by the PC. A financial interest is herein defined as an ownership stake in equity security or debt security issued by an entity, including the rights and obligations to acquire such an interest.
So the previous section to me, it would be the appropriate one to look at, which you have a business, but you don't have an application. You're not.
Exactly. It's
you're-
for a special use
For
permit.
special use, yeah.
Legally, that's what I wanted to hear. Yeah, you can always ask for legal advice. I'm not an attorney, but to me, that language is very specific. I mean, you're trying to get an approval based on existing language. We're considering new language. I don't think there's anything in the conflict that talks about us considering new ordinance and participating in that process. That's what I see as the main difference here. I know it's a nuance, but to me, it's a black and white difference. She can advocate for things based on her opinion, but she's not trying to get a application approved being on this commission. And those two things are completely different in my opinion.
And if I remember correctly, when Al Keaton was here, that was some language was changed after that incident because he's adding this rules of necessity language. I don't know if anyone was here during that conversation. Do you remember that?
I don't remember the conversation. I think it was that he was in the 300-foot distance of the golf course, and he still wanted to be involved in the decision-making, and his property touched the golf course or something like that. But I'm not,
If I remember right, that was a site plan and he wasn't noticed in that.
there was,
Right? Okay. Right, he wasn't. So it seems the policy is written around a development project in front of the planning commission at a particular moment in time,
Asking for approval.
asking for approval. We are
That's how I
now,
read it.
now crafting language that sets up that opportunity or that possibility down the road.
I think that the standard that you're concerned about is fair, but I don't think it's in the conflict language in
The-
what we're reading.
There's the appearance of independence. Was that in there? I don't know. At one time I saw that. Maybe the code of ethics, I don't know. But it's that, those were my concerns. So I've had different codes of ethics that I've had to adhere to. So anyway, this is the planning commission.
And Sadie's one person,
Yeah.
right? We're all working on this together. Okay, so can we have a motion as to whether Sadie needs to recuse herself from the, any discussions regarding the winery and cidery ordinance?
I make a motion that Sadie does not have to recuse herself.
Second,
Second. Sherman.
let's do a roll call vote, please.
Rebant,
Yes.
Sherman,
Yes.
Trumbull,
Yes.
Pelton, and yes. Stratton,
Yes.
Milnick,
Yes.
Merchant.
Yes.
Okay.
All right, the motion passes. Sadie does not.
I don't know if Sadie should vote on it.
I don't know. I didn't know either. That's why I left it to the end.
Recused herself from voting on that motion.
You Excuse yourself from the vote.
Right.
Vote to see whether you have.
All right. Thank
Well-
you for that. And Sadie, thank you for your comments.
So Nick's the last one.
Yeah. All right, public comment in-house. Any person shall be permitted to address the meeting of the PC. Public comments shall be carried out in accordance with the following rules and procedures. There are 2 opportunities for public comment now and at the end of the meeting. Comments shall be directed to the PC with questions directed to the chair. Any person wishing to address the PC shall speak from the lectern and state his or her name and address. Persons may address the PC on matters that are relevant to township planning and zoning issues. No person shall be allowed to speak more than once on the same matter, excluding the time needed to answer a PC member's questions. Public comment shall be limited to 3 minutes per person. In order to avoid unscheduled debates, the PC generally will not comment or respond to public comment. Silence or non-response from the PC should not be interpreted as disinterest. Do we have anyone in the public who'd like to speak? Carl?
You people must be doing a very good job. See anybody here to complain? I have 3 separate issues for items on home issues to bring up. The first one is, you recall the last meeting, I was not allowed to speak to the commission. You have a new policy of listen only on Zoom. I wasn't aware of that. I was trying to give you guys a compliment, and I'll bring that up later. My first issue is went home and I thought about that. And I then contacted one of my attorneys because I thought this might be in violation of the Americans Disability Act. And he responded to me with this. Carl, I used AI research to research your concern. It seems if you formally request this accommodation, they have to accommodate it. This is a critical distinction that moves from technical failure into the realm of intentional policy discrimination. In my view, as an ADA expert attorney, creating a 2-tier participation system where in one person attendees can speak, question, while remote attendees are restricted to listen only mode is a significant risk to the township. The equal opportunity mandate under, it's called 28 CFR 35.1, a public entity may not provide a qualified individual with a disability an opportunity to participate that is not equal to that afforded others. The argument is, if a resident has a disability that makes in-person attendance impossible, such as immunity compromise, having a mobility impairment, requiring specialized medical equipment, the township limits remote participation to view only. The township is effectively stripping that person of his right to petition the government. The standard. The ADA doesn't just retire access to watching, it requires equal participation. If an able-bodied person can stand at the podium and ask a question, person with a disability must be provided with the equivalent mechanism to do so. The new regulations. The Department of Justice recently finalized a new rule effective for most by April 2026, specifically addressing digital accessibility for Title II entries, real-time interaction. The DOJ emphasized that when services are moved online, they must meet this is other WCI, I don't know how to turn that off, level AA standards. Functionally, if the service of a public meeting includes a question and answer session, the functionality must be accessible. Internally intentionally turned off the mic for remote users while keeping it on for in-person users is a policy-based exclusion, which is often harder for the township to defend than a simple technical glitch.
Carl, I can only give you 3 minutes on this. Do you want to wrap it up?
It's only 2 more sentences. That's my next issue.
Okay.
That is ridiculous. 3 minutes. The township often tries to defend it by saying the remote feed is just a courtesy, not an official meeting. However, request for accommodation. If the resident with a disability specifically asks for remote questioning as a reasonable modification because they cannot attend, the township is legally obligated to grant it unless it can prove it is undue financial or administrative burden. 2 more sentences. Difficulty of defense. Since the technology Zoom, WebEx already has a raise hand or unmute feature built in, the township would find it nearly impossible to argue for allowing remote questions is an undue burden. 1 more sentence. The township might argue that they can't verify the identity of remote users or manage Zoom bombing. However, the courts have generally found the administrative convenience does not trump civil rights. There is less restrictive ways to manage these issues. I will give you all copies of this.
You put in a written request?
Pardon?
Have you submitted a written request
No,
based
this-
on
Have I
ADA?
made a
Yeah.
request? What is your procedure for doing it? No, I haven't made. I'm just bringing this up as an issue so we can avoid having
The
to go to
clerk.
court. I don't have an issue right now, but I do have at times.
Right. So I think you need to put in a written request to the clerk.
Fine. I don't. This has also gone to the our attorney.
Okay.
And the board. You want me to do my second issue now?
Sure.
Okay.
We'll start the 3
The one
minutes
I
over.
wanted to say was reading your bylaws for this year. I was very impressed. You have an educational requirement in there, that which I have met previously. There are 2 other things I think you ought to consider. The Michigan State courses, one called Lakes and Streams. This goes over a lot of issues regarding the lakes and streams, the drainage, all kinds of issues, pollution that will occasionally come up. And you need to be aware of those. And that would be another good requirement. There's also the Riparian's Handbook, which I think you probably all have. The second is the one for the ZBA. They have a course for that now to go through and get certified on that. That's very similar to what's in the two green books. There are some tests you have to take, which challenge you a little bit. And then there is the recent course that we took from the township lawyers on the ZBA. That was good. It's on video. You can see it. You'll notice in there I asked some questions that they hadn't covered that were in the green books, which I think green books really give you a good thing. But having that certification, I think is important for an ZBA member. You know, when you get into litigation, that just adds something. The next one is the township board has a 5-minute rule on speaking. I don't recall, we didn't have a 3-minute rule. I know that when I was on the planning commission. And your job here is to get all kinds of information from our people before you write zoning laws and make other decisions. There's site plan reviews. How you can limit 3 minutes is simply, for me, at times with my being 88 years old and being slightly dyslexic and forgetful, I can't even give you my name and address sometimes in 3 minutes. That's ridiculous. I think you should change it to the same 5-minute rule, and at times have exceptions to that when there's a lot of people here. You don't let them go in forever, but I found all of that information to be very helpful. And also the Zoom land people. My God, you get a lot of information. Those people, when there's a lot of it I don't like. I'm going to call all kinds of names, but that's ridiculous to not allow that. So I will give you copies of this. And like I say, our board has it and our lawyers have it.
Okay. Thank you, Carl. Anyone else for public comment? Nope. Okay. Okay. Approval of minutes of the previous meeting.
Was there a duplication of a page 8? There, I don't have my,
What's that? Did I put it in there twice?
I think so. I don't have my computer pulled up to it. But seems like page 8 was there.
Is that the packet page 8 or the minutes page 8? Thanks, Carl.
Yes, I do.
Does anybody else see a duplication of a page?
I think it was just a copy of the page, not
Yeah, I'm not seeing it on the PDF. I'm looking at the PDF right now.
I don't see 2 page 8s.
There are 2 page numbers because K numbers the minutes, and then there's in the lower right-hand corner is the page number of the packet.
That's why.
Is that what it is? Okay. While Denise is looking, does anybody have anything else? I had just a typo on page 7 of the packet. Towards the bottom, my comments, let's see, this was about the winery ordinance. Any items in the proposed ordinance not covered in the noise ordinance should be included, added. I think we can strike the word included. So it's the second paragraph from the bottom. Okay, it's on your page 5, my page 7.
paragraph.
Yeah,
Which page is that again, please?
page 7 of the packet. under my comments. It is line 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 of my comments. It says it starts with should be included, added. I think we can just strike included. I think that's all I found. Did anybody have anything else?
Did not.
I don't see what I saw before, but
Okay,
I didn't print it out, so.
okay. Can I have a motion to accept the minutes from the March 4th meeting with the one amendment?
I make a motion to approve the minutes with one amendment.
I'll second that, Melnick.
All in favor?
Yes.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, correspondence. We received two emails. The first is from Tracy Spinsich. It was received on March 9th, and it's in support of the winery ordinance. And the second was received on Monday, March 30th from Frank Highmore regarding the Land Division Act. What is it? The 10 for 10 rule, which will become automatic state default on March 24th, 2027. And I think this is something that we'll discuss with the board, right?
Yeah.
Everybody got a copy of that, right? Okay.
So I think as he pointed out, there's an element of this that belongs in the general law ordinances as well as the zoning ordinance. And I think he's pointing that out, but I think it's a very good point that he's making there about this change in state law. So we need to pay attention to it.
Right. Before they make the decision. Okay. Reports. Zoning administrator.
Hi there. In addition to the Highmore request, if they go for the 10 for 10, that's going to be a lot of septics, a lot more wells drilled into our aquifers, and we need to really protect our water quality and really protect our master plan and what it states. So I'm very supportive of that particular correspondence. My March report is in the packet. We had 11. We're up to 11 permits. I think I've issued 2 more since this report on March 23rd. We had one, a property line adjustment. There's nothing going before the Zoning Board of Appeals. I did go to a few training classes. I went to the Stand By Your Plan. I emailed that to everyone. I think I sent it to you again today just to keep it fresh in your minds. Jill Bain was the instructor on that. And so I sent you all a copy, and I think it's included in the packet of all the screenshots that were done. Basically, the key is your master plan is your goal as a township, and your zoning ordinances should support that master plan. So anytime you're making a change to zoning ordinances, you really need to make sure it fits with your master plan. And if you're supporting agriculture, that's the key thing you need to be looking at, because all of your zoning ordinances, if they don't support what your master plan states, your master plan doesn't have a lot of, and we just approved it. I did go to a class on March 24th on the land division on the new bill. The recommendation that came from that with Brad Newman out of Michigan State was review your ordinances, review your land division ordinance, and review your master plan to make sure there's no conflicts with any of the terminology that's in the new House bill that was approved by Gretchen Whitmer on December 23rd. So the key thing is if you have 0 to 19.99 acres, the first 10 acres you can split 10 times. Today you can split it 4, but the new bill effective in 2027, you can split it 10 times. And so that could have a huge impact on our agriculture in the community. I also attended a meeting last Wednesday with other zoning administrators and planners in the Grand Traverse area. Basically talked about, there is a system with Grand Traverse County called Epic. It's an online system that they've got 2 townships that are actually keying in all of their land use permits. It's got the soil and erosion permits are in there, the building permits are in there, the site plans are in there, everything's in one place. Green Lake Township's using it, East Bay Township is using it, and they're in the process of getting Peninsula Township on it as well. Ashley, who was in the Building Codes Department, is kind of the Epic expert. And so she is kind of leading the charge and helping with the converting and getting townships to get there slowly. They haven't determined what the costs are going to be, what the fee would be. I don't know if it may be cost prohibitive in this township to go there, but I know that they're attempting to get everything in one place so that a site plan that comes in and I review, or a plot plan for a new home or a garage, that it's the same plan that gets to the building department. I guess in some townships, I have not found this in my 2 years here in Whitewater, but in some townships, the plans that get approved at the township level don't always make it to the building department. So, but I'm making 3 trips out there, so hopefully, you know, I don't think most townships do that. Something else I wanted to share with you guys is there are some new House bills at the state right now that are being reviewed. These are not approved bills, and they're geared towards housing, particularly in areas served by public water and sewer. So this is really going to impact any of the neighboring communities that have wastewater treatment plants, public water, sewer, but they are trying to monitor a few things. The one House bill that really impacts us, if it gets approved, is going to be House Bill 5531. It revises the statutory site plan review procedures for specifying when local governments may require additional studies or documents and imposing a 60-day decision deadline while limiting further information requests after the initial approval to matters necessary for compliance or material public health and safety concerns. So think about all the site plan reviews that we've had. And one of the comments that was made at this meeting last week was, if a site plan comes in and it's incomplete, the clock still starts. So it's going to have an impact if we have a 60-day clock on site plan reviews. If this gets approved, this is not approved. But if you don't feel this is a good plan, please contact your congressman. I think those are the high points.
Can I ask you a question about the Epic GT? Is it,
Yeah.
would that save that step that right now somebody comes in, they want to do an addition to their house or whatever, you review?
They would probably key the application. I haven't seen it live.
Wouldn't have to do that extra step where you
The
have to let them
application
know?
would be the county's application. And so the same application would be used by the county and the township. So they're going to be looking to conform all of the townships within the town, within Grand Traverse County, to use the same basic format for everything. And then you could go in on the Epic system and you could actually, and what I do today with Ashley is I call her a couple times a year and she actually spits me out a download of, she just does a data dump for everything associated with Whitewater Township. So everything that has an open permit that hasn't been closed out, that I haven't given a final inspection on, I can go through and review what properties do I need to go check on. Did it get started? Have they poured footers? Do they need a final so they can get occupancy? So I can kind of stay ahead of it if I can. But I review that report and I rely on the builders. So it's, but the Epic system it's all online.
Mhm.
So if you go in, you can see the water report, you can see the septic report, you can see the site plans. If there's changes to the site plan, or if there's changes to the drawings, or there's new architectural drawings added to it, it's all going to be in one place. And it's all going to be centrally sitting in this Epic system.
Okay.
I've seen outputs from it, but I haven't seen how they actually do the inputs. I did get a response back from Beckett and Rader on an out of office when I had sent an email to this group last week, and it was taking them 6 weeks to process an application for a land use permit. So I don't wait 6 weeks to process a land use permit in our township.
So would they take over that process or
They
would you
don't, they don't
still?
take it over. We still do it,
Right,
but
okay.
we still have to make sure we get paid our fee, the information gets keyed in and everything's in the system.
So it just takes away that step where you have to contact them and let them know that you've
Well, right
approved
now,
it.
if you're going to do a building permit, you've got to go in and key the stuff in the system. And what it will do is it'll probably require a lot more information be done prior to even asking for a land use permit. Because some of the townships are requiring a well permit, a septic permit, and all of those have to be done even before they ask for the land use permit. So it's going to be, the process will be set more so by the county, and we'll just be making sure we adhere to our ordinances. So it's going to be a combination of things. If they come to the board, they may come to the planning commission and present it to you. Ashley said she's going to be planning to go around and talk to everybody. I'm just kind of giving you a heads up. This is probably maybe 5 years down the line for us, I'm guessing. Because we got, I don't know, what, 13 townships in Grand Traverse County. And I don't think we're one of the bigger ones that would need to maneuver on this, but,
Okay.
and maybe cost prohibitive just for the software to do it. I don't know. Okay, any other questions? Hi, Rod.
Deb, I've been trying to acquaint myself with mapping tools at the county level, and I'm starting to find a real interest in the tool set, but I am really confused with all those that are presented and which ones are really applicable to what we need to see visually in Whitewater Township. Is there a training class? Is there somebody that can sit down with me and show me the proper tool sets and how they are used, especially as you look at, you know, the zoning?
Which software are you looking at?
Well,
Are you just trying to go out on Grand Traverse
go out on
their
county
website
mapping, yeah,
to go out and just search on things, find things,
search on it.
track?
In fact, what caught my attention was something in this packet about Acme Township, and they were showing the boundary of Acme Township and
And Whitewater.
Whitewater, and I'm trying to understand some of that. It's not a real clear visual.
It's a zigzag
It's
once
a
you get to
zigzag.
72.
Yeah, and I really wanted to see something like an aerial view or something to understand the relationships.
I'm in the office on Mondays from 8 to 4. If you call and schedule time with me, I'll show you everything I can have access to and what I do with it.
You were wonderful. Thank you.
Everyone heard that, right?
So maybe
Just subscribe to something.
Yeah, so maybe I can add to that, though. We have the township subscribes to the Eagle View software, which allows us to look at areas as an air photo with the property lines. And it does it in a way that lets you look at it at an oblique angle as opposed to straight down on the air photo. You can look at it sideways and get a sense of the building heights. You can actually measure the building heights on it. There's actually a tool. So that's available to the planning commission, and I can share that with you as well. I think Deb has-
I can show it to you too. When you
Okay.
come in, I can show you Eagle View. I can go through all that. And anyone else, anybody that wants to, schedule time with me, they can come in and learn some of that and get a better feel of how to go find things.
So it's just to be clear, it's not a software that resides on your computer. It's a web-based system. So you don't have to have the program. You have to download the interface, but the software itself resides with the county. So you can do that from your laptop.
Yeah, Scott got a hold of me about it too, and I can actually send you a video that kind of gives you an overview of what it does.
Can you send that to all of us?
I can do that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Anything else for Deb?
Thanks.
All right. Thank you, Deb.
Can't speak or whatever, but I do work in all these different townships and stuff. And I think maybe something in our zoning is making her go for that extra third trip or whatever, because most of them only, you go talk to them, you get your zoning. As a person or a building, you never see them again. But they sometimes will come out, some of the townships will come out and check your footings. When you get done with your footings, they'll make sure that you said, it's where you said it was and all that. But I think that, yeah, something in ours is making her work too much, so.
We'll have to. Okay, we'll have to look at that.
I have 3 trips to every site. We talked about it with Giffords and Webster as well. And I don't think anyone was suggesting any changes to that, so. I'm okay with that being
You're okay.
changed, but.
All right, chair report. I attended the March 12th board meeting regarding the short-term rental survey vendor proposals, which are in your packet. And they approved our a budget. And so later in the meeting, we will discuss and select a vendor during new business. And then I've also handed out a preliminary timeline. This is a high level view of the steps that we're taking in terms of the short-term rental possible ordinance. And so you can see what we've completed so far and what is up next, which is the selection of the vendor. And I made a mistake there. So you can cross off ROWG and MSUE for that. This is me working in Excel. And then the other thing that we're going to talk about later today is the collection of topics for survey questions, because that's one of the first things that we'll need to do with the vendor. So I will update this as I get information from the vendor that we select in terms of a timeline, because I don't know what their timelines look like at this time. And I think that's it for me. Oh, I'm sorry. I skipped you. You were supposed to be next. Sorry. Randy.
I'm item C.
Pardon me?
I'm C on the.
No. Oh, you are C. Okay. Township Board Representative reports.
Okay. All right. Well, several things prevented the township board from scheduling a joint meeting in April. I think with the last meeting, we had 3 or 4 dates that were available. There was a lot of change in meetings this last month with the board. We did bring it up at the last meeting, the one before the last night, about pushing that back until the PC has a chance to make some progress on this short-term rental survey. As Reen mentioned, she came to the board meeting, discussed the proposals, and had some clarity on that. I think what the board really wants is the PC to take the lead on this and then come alongside when we get further along with the survey. That includes, a draft survey instrument in the vendor, and Reen can talk about that a little bit later. But making sure that the planning commission and the board are on the same page. Then this would also include work on the capital improvements plan too, and give us a little bit more time to get our feet under us, and that we've had some change in ROWG members in that respect. So that's where that stands. That's why there wasn't a special joint meeting in April. I mentioned a couple other things. The proposed rezoning approved by the planning commission in March by Mr. Maitland is going to the board on April 13th. Again, there's been some shuffling of meeting dates, and so that's the next board meeting. That's an evening meeting that will take that matter forward. The budget was approved, and that was just done the other day with requested support from the Planning Commission in terms of professional services and related matters. So that's a positive sign. And then I'll mention too, the board at the March 26th meeting decided to live stream the meetings going forward. I'm not sure exactly when that break off is, but there'll be no public comment at public hearings in the future. That was a decision that was, you remember that the public comment at the beginning and end of the meeting on Zoom was canceled about a year ago, 9 months ago, something like that. But we kept it for public hearings, thinking that a public hearing is something that you want people to come and contribute thoughts to about pending issues. But then we went back and looked at the number of times that an actual resident took advantage of that, and it was only about five times in the last year for both the planning commission and the town board. So there's equipment that's being purchased, and we can get into all that detail if you like, but that's the bottom line. And then we'll touch on the private road ordinance that was sent on to the board here. I think that's an agenda item later. So that's the news from the township board.
Scott, anything from the zoning board?
We didn't meet, nope. No
Easiest
information.
assignment. And the ROWG, Rod?
Okay, there is no meeting of the ROWG this month. We've decided to take a pause. We had a number of people that were traveling, so I think that was welcome, having a break. But we completed our turnover of all the short-term rental data to the PC. So we are crossing that off of our list of things to accomplish. And our next meeting, which will likely be the second week of the month going forward, which allows us to create reports and send to the PC. We've had an issue with timing up until this last month where the ROWG meets on a Tuesday and the PC meets on Wednesday. So we were back to back in a lot of these cases. So the official handoff and movement of data in approval was off. So between Reen and I, we've had that discussion. We're going to implement it in March. And then lastly, the capital improvement plan. Denise attended a 2-hour session with MSU online, and I received the big dump packet of all the information. I think there's a lot of good things in there that will make this project, at least a data collection for the ROWG, a fairly straightforward process. However, I don't know how much data exists within Whitewater Township on all of the capital components. And as I understand it, a component is anything over $10,000, and it has a life expectancy over 6 years. So we need to go out and we need to somehow complete an inventory. I am aware of a few people who have good data, but to complete this to its 100th%, I think it may take us a while to do that. But that's my understanding of what the ROWG is being asked to do. And that's it.
I think the slides from the webinar, you have a copy of those. If
I do.
anybody else would like
I
a
do,
copy of
yeah.
them, we could send them to anybody that wants them, just to look at them, if you're interested in the CIP. Scott,
Was that the training that was offered by the Michigan Association of Planning, or is it
MSUE.
MSU? Okay.
Oh, I guess lastly, I did send out a communication to all of the ROWG members saying that with the STR work completed, if you would like to continue working on the ROWG, you're welcome to continue to the next project. So I haven't heard from anybody to say yay or nay. So I don't know what our staffing will look like in May. I may have to go out and find some others to work with us or not.
And you still are one short.
I'm still one short, yes, yeah.
Okay. And is there the RFP that you had put together for the architecture firms? Is anything going on with that?
No,
Or?
not at the moment, and we could certainly provide that to you for review, and it's probably a good idea. We figured that there would be a need for some architectural support as you look at alternatives for new building, remodeled building, all kinds of different scenarios. So I have that written up. It was talked about at the board. The thought was that the planning commission should review that when we're ready to go, and maybe it needs to be tweaked a bit more before it goes out. So we'd appreciate your input on it.
Yes.
And I did double check with Tim Aarons, and he did used to do capital improvement plans, so he would be another resource for you as well.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Do we have any additional items to report? Does anybody have anything? Okay, unfinished business, winery and cidery ordinance, next steps. I know that Sadie handed out her comments and support for some changes, and then included in your packet is the ordinance that we used at the copy that we used at the public hearing with Randy's comments in red along the margin.
So for clarification, this 310 version is a version that was created after the public hearing. Is
Oh, it is?
that right?
Yeah.
So there were some edits made to that after
From
the
what you
hearing?
guys- Yeah, it's what I sent you after the. meeting.
Okay.
Okay.
There's like 3 changes from what was talked about at the public hearing, which we obviously need to discuss those changes, but.
So those changes were included in the
This
10.
is, this was updated, yes, on 310.
Yeah,
So
it says 310.
So what I gave you guys was I went through and looked at your comments, and there's definitely, I feel like, some work to do. But I spent a lot of time on a few of the things, and the biggest concerns are that we keep going round and round on are the events and the music and promotional activities and how to distinguish those two. So I think the best way to do this is unless anybody else has comments, we can go through those too, but just go through your comments down the side, and some of them I put in this packet that we can look at that I looked into that are more intense or in depth, and the other ones I've just we can comment on them. So that
Want me
sounds,
to start?
yeah.
Okay. So as I said, I come from a planning and zoning background and I know how important the language is in zoning ordinances to be clear and precise. And I can tell you that even in our township, we've got major expenses, terminology that was used poorly, and ordinance language that is not where it needs to be. And so we need to do our due diligence here and make sure language is as clear and precise and we all understand, what's in here. And so anyway, so I just spent a little bit of time going through each section, and I guess I'll start with the first one. Probably don't need to identify principle 2. Just referencing the master plan would be fine. There's probably, master plans are updated periodically. It may be changed in the future. Then you'd have an ordinance that references something that doesn't exist in the master plan. That's a minor thing. Secondly, and just stop me if you want to talk about anything.
Yep.
Okay. So 5.13 is, I believe, an intent section where you're trying to define what the intent of this is, and it describes trying to encourage fruit and wine and agriculture and so forth, but yet most of the ordinance is really about events and activities that are ancillary to the agriculture. I think there should be something that connects those two together that says that the reason that there is some limited commercial activity allowed in a winery is to support agriculture. So we avoid the scenario of basically defining a bar and a restaurant and an event center with a winery attached to it. So I think that would help with the intent more.
I see what you're saying. I think that it was just suggested because agritourism is mentioned in the first sentence of under 5.13 wineries and tasting rooms. It says, is the intent of the section to promote local agricultural production, growth of agritourism set forth by the master plan. So that definition of agritourism, if you look it up, encompasses events, outdoor music, promotional activities, and entertainment. So I think to keep it simple, we didn't write a sentence about that, but later on in here, I talked about maybe we put in a definition of what agritourism is for our township, which would then further identify what is included in that. So I have that in here, but on one of your other comments, I kind of added it into the ordinance, so we can look at
Okay,
that.
so we could all agree on what agritourism is.
Because I think it does need to be defined, and that would help.
I mean, the term's used a
That
lot,
for
but
sure.
it's not altogether clear. I think everyone probably has a different definition of that,
Yep,
you know, in our mind.
I agree.
I've not seen what you have, so.
And then you said the mention of, it should also mention microbreweries and distilleries here. If we look back at the definitions, we simplified that in the definition under winery. We said that all further references to wineries shall include cideries, microbreweries, and micro distilleries. And I believe we did that so that we weren't having to repeat it over and over again. So any reference in this that says to wineries, it also includes cideries, microbreweries, and micro distilleries. Because essentially, if you become a small winemaker, you can be any of those things by just checking a box on the application through the MLCC.
Okay, was that added after the meeting? Is that what happened, or is that?
That's been in there. You look at,
Remember?
It's in definitions.
yep, under winery.
Is it on?
Just above that.
Yep, just above Article 5, the definitions section, it says winery. The last sentence of the definition of winery includes that.
I think later there was some question about a winery or a microbrewery or distillery being an accessory use to a winery,
Mhm.
which I think contradicts that.
I think it contradicts it.
Well, if
Oh, here it's saying that they're interchangeable, and then later we're talking about it being an accessory.
I think that was a concern.
Okay,
Mhm.
so maybe we need to adjust that language.
Okay.
It's later
I
on.
think I did. I think I did look at that later, but
So I guess we should be clear on what we're talking about here. Is it one or the other or both, or I know what, during the conversation, we came up with a more encompassing definition of all this stuff. And so I don't remember exactly how we ended up with that, but
The discussion about agritourism, I'm guessing that each one of us has our own vision of what that definition would be. I think it's a great idea to list what we would include under agritourism, but it would also be helpful to list what it isn't.
mhm.
so I agree. It will get, as we keep moving down, I did do a big section on research and on what is defined as agritourism by the state of Michigan, by the Right to Farms Act and all of those things. So that will help us make a definition for agritourism, which I have one suggested. So we'll get there. And then we can kind of weigh in on that.
Next page, no need to define Article 2. A lot of these terms are defined, so that's not necessary because it kind of calls it out in one. I think we need to be clear about what happens in that 100-foot setback. I mean, obviously, buildings have to be set back 100-foot, permanent buildings, but does that include parking? Does that include temporary structures? What are we allowing in that 100-foot? I think there's an image of this green belt kind of thing around the winery, but the ordinance doesn't say that. It just says that buildings are pushed back 100 feet off the lot line.
Doesn't our current, we don't currently allow anything in our setbacks, right? In the zoning ordinance, I thought, so.
Well, what temporary structures, do we allow temporary structures in there? I think, I'm just looking for clarity here.
Right, no, I understand. I was just wondering if we already don't allow anything
It's-
in our setbacks, do we need to?
We'd have to.
But with ag, I don't think that's regulated. I mean,
No?
Well, that's another issue too, is agricultural exemptions, but, so I guess, but this should be whatever it is, I guess, whatever, what happens in that 100-foot setback? Is that just nothing? Is that parking? Is that tents? Is that?
I guess I don't really see like why do we want to regulate that? I mean, I feel like we're already we're putting regulations on the lot size, we're putting regulation on the building size. And if you're pushing everything in, you know, so say we're saying that it's got to be 20 acres, right? And you have to have 100-foot setbacks. Well, you have to have planted fruit on there. You have to have your winery building on there, but you also have to consider the lay of the land and high and low spots and where you're planting fruit. And if you're already pretty limited on some of that in our township, therefore, like what if the only place to put your parking or to put your temporary tent for the weekend is in 100-foot setback? I mean, I feel like that's kind of unfair because if you
Well-
want the fruit and everything to be on there, I mean, that's difficult. And already, whether the winery's there or not, and that's owned ag land, you can park equipment or put anything anywhere you want as it is now. So why are we trying to change that, I guess?
Well, I think my point of view on that is that a parking lot is different from, temporarily parking farm equipment or something like that. Like if there's an event and you've got 100 cars parking in that setback, that's very different from farm equipment. And it also, then you're like parking along the street probably.
Well, if it's 100 feet though, you're not.
Well, it depends on what
On
the
where that
parking looks like.
parking is, which the parking, I mean, I don't know how you want to,
Yeah.
And every site's gonna be different.
right, that's why I feel like,
Site plan review,
right,
we'd be looking at that.
Yeah, we just have to be careful because then if you allow one person to do it, you're setting a precedence, right? So a precedent. So, and we need to be consistent in how, and that's why it's nice to have something in the ordinance so that we have a starting place, and then if there's a hardship, then they could go in for a variance, right?
Yeah.
We do have an ordinance today for special events and other temporary uses. 5.06, temporary buildings and uses. And it's item number A5, special events and other temporary uses. I'm not sure if that's going to be changed in the future, but we currently have an ordinance that oversees this, and it doesn't say anything about you can't be in the setbacks. It speaks to carnivals, circus, musical concert, transient entertainment, rec enterprise, sidewalks, tent sales, similar outdoor sales, other special events as deemed similar by the zoning administrator. And basically, the key is to make sure it's not a health and safety issue
I thought.
and that it's not going to become a parking nightmare or backup,
I thought-
roadways.
I thought what's allowed in the setback typically shows up like in the district breakdown of the zoning ordinance.
Keep in mind, this is a temporary structure that's only going to be there for a short period of time. It's not an extended, it's not going to be there for 3 months. It's going to be there for a weekend or for a week event, like an Oktoberfest or something like that. So it's strictly temporary. Just something to clarify.
So I guess the thought that comes to my mind was the 100-foot setback was kind of presented as an opportunity to buffer noise and lights and so forth from adjacent properties. And if we're allowing traffic movement in there and temporary structures, that really encroaches on neighboring property. So anyway, I think that's my comments don't offer a solution here. I'm pointing out that we have a statement that says, buildings have to be 100 foot off the property line, and that's good, but I don't know that is really a 100-foot green belt around the outside that shields maybe next door properties from that.
Yeah, and it's a noise buffer. And it does, every site is different. Everybody has, topography is different. So you have to take that into consideration. But the starting point was the 100-foot setback.
Well, and I think what you just said is really important, and it should be how we framework the language, which is extremely important, but this is a special use application. And if you try to define things based on worst case scenarios that are possibly there or possibly not, you just said, hey, we have to be consistent and have a standard, or, well, actually through a special use approval process, you don't. You have the right to say, we understand we did this with Mr. Smith, but Mr. Jones, your property is different. It impacts your neighbors differently.
right, like what's next door to you?
Exactly, like 100 foot, we could talk about that all day long. But if you want to have a tent that's not 100 foot off the property line, but it's in a corner where there's nothing, then for your special use, you can say, okay, and I don't know how, I mean, it sounds like part of the use, but you could say, as long as there's not a new, you know, you can put in any kind of, every site is different, just like you said. So there's two things you got to balance here. You got to balance the fact, like, this is not an ordinance that's like a use by right. This is an ordinance that's dictated by special use. And I've been in front of special use, going through entitlements for special use. I've done it 100 times, and I've had ordinance that's very, very comprehensive. And then I've had ordinance that just is just old and horrible. But no matter what, it's usually the municipality and the commission or the body that's considering it. You got to work with them. And and I'm not saying that it shouldn't, I'm trying to explain that when we look at the language, you got to have that layer of understanding that some of these things are important, but some of these things can, quite frankly, be disregarded within the special use process.
But are we gonna allow parking in the setback or not? I mean, I think that's a very straightforward thing to have stated, because that will,
With
but-
a certain site, you could.
but if somebody's going to the expense of creating a site plan and then presenting it to us, shouldn't they know ahead of time what's allowed in the setback?
I think at the same time, if you have a 100-foot setback and you have a winery or a cidery, and they're within the 100-foot setback and we're going 200 feet, you have 3 residents there, you say, I know that's what it says, but we don't like your layout. You should utilize this southeast corner instead of this western corner that's right next to the neighbors. So it kind of works both ways. And that's what I'm trying. So if you try to, I mean, I think that I would say to anybody that's going to come in front of a special use consideration, you say, these are guidelines and these are the best we can do. And the spirit of this is you show us how your site can really mitigate all the concerns that our community has. And yes, you should use these to guide you, but we really highly recommend that you sit down with our planner and show her this and get some feedback. And we do some preliminary studies with you. And then when you finally come to us, that there's no super surprises, which is usually how I like to go through this process. But it's, you know, as we do the language, it's important, and we got to have good language, but you got to remember that there is the right to say, hey, this criteria doesn't fit your site.
Well, especially when we're sending out the requirement to send out the letters to the surrounding properties. And if there's issues, then you got to consider it. If there's no issues, then why make it a big deal if it's not a big deal? Like,
Yep.
you can't overregulate to the point where like nothing's feasible, because there's always an exception.
So parking could be right on the lot line.
No, not right on the lot. No, because who's going to do that? Like, they might ask
Somebody
to
who-
do that.
yeah.
They might ask to do that, but we can say, no, that's the most ridiculous thing I ever heard. You know, like, if you're going to come and ask that,
If the lot line's on, like there's public land on the lot line. Like this farm backs up to public land. Yeah, and then you have a 100-foot setback and there's 3 houses on the east side. And they say, well, we don't really have room back there, but if you let us go to the lot line, and you say, yeah, I mean, it's public land.
Yep.
So and I'm not saying that you put that in the ordinance maybe, but you say 100-foot, but it's not even about the 100-foot for me. I just wanted to remind everybody that as we go through this, understand that you don't have to, isn't used by right that we're writing. This is a guideline for a process that we have the right to be subjective. And it's, you know, and you're not going to have a gotcha moment like if you have used by right stuff and you say you can't do it and they sue you. I mean, there is some, and there's a gentleman in here that's a farmer, and I said, before we issue a special use permit, we do have power to make decisions on levels that are not dictated by black and white things.
I don't disagree with you on allowing definitions to kind of move around depending on what you're starting with and, you know, the lay of the land. But I think a buffer is something important to everybody in this community. And we need to define buffer and have a real definition. And I wouldn't suggest we play with buffers, but if you've got other ways of moving things around for that particular site, that's fine, but a buffer should be a buffer. And in
Yeah.
my mind, I would think that having parking on a buffer is not what we want to do.
We do have a definition of buffer strip.
And
Okay.
item C goes on to describe that,
Okay, all right.
having a buffer that we can,
So right now, this says that no structure shall be built within the minimum yards required except when expressly allowed elsewhere in this ordinance. And that's all it says about what you can do in a setback.
Which article is that on? Are you
Are
looking?
you
at
asking
this?
me?
Yeah, is it the zoning ordinance, is the number
Yeah, it's page 4-6.
4-6? Okay.
Something else to keep in mind is a lot of these wineries may have orchards all around them.
Right.
Orchards tend to be well cared for. And we have an event barn in Torch Lake Township, and people come to a wedding and they park right in the orchard. They just line their cars up and they have a path to get in and out and a 2-track that they catch to go around. So if somebody is bringing in a tent and you want it in a flat surface, like a corner of a parking lot, and you parked in an orchard portion as a temporary, because you're going to have 50 people there for a wedding, it would be the conditions you would put on the special use or the request that's coming in. And I think that's what you were going for, was conditions, not definitions so much, but you can actually put conditions on a special use. Thanks.
and we've had special use come before us, and you just heard that we have 60 days to approve a site plan if that new law passes, so that constrains us further if that would pass, but anyway.
Yeah, just deny it.
What's that?
Okay. You gonna make that motion?
If that goes through.
So if there's 100-foot setback, you're saying that when they come to the site plan review, that we could look at all the circumstances, the topography, just like a PUD, where the open space is. We would do the same thing with a winery or cidery site location, but you can start out with the 100-foot setback and then see what they can work and fit into that space.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So you can leave it, the parking, if it's, in the trees, that's great. You have to have over deferred parking when you have events. But, you have to have a certain parking area permanent.
Right.
And that would be outside of the 100-foot setback.
Okay, so I think we should just actually write that language in here instead of just trying to think that the 100-foot is gonna do it. Because it's not, because it doesn't say what can happen in 100-foot. So it would say something like, the setback is 100-foot unless, and nothing can happen in that 100 feet, except that temporary parking facilities, whatever, may be allowed if the planning commission is satisfied that there's enough buffering and landscaping features to mitigate any impacts.
As a condition, right?
Yeah, but it's got to say that.
Isn't that, yeah, but that would be a condition to the,
Would, but I'm just saying the ordinance
Yeah.
language needs to.
no, I like
to
it.
support that.
And some of the other townships, they have that, the parking, shall not be visible from the road. So when you're driving by, you don't see this. Have you been to the Hop Lot? Is it the Hop Lot over on M22?
Yeah.
Yeah. Have you been to that?
I haven't. no.
Okay. You can't see any of it from the road except the entrance. And you get back in there and that's kind of like the ideal look.
Yep. It is very similar to a PUD process that we're
Yeah.
considering putting the language for, so.
So the buffering language that's in here, and I don't know if I'm just misunderstanding this, but it seems to me the way it's written right now that it's referring to buildings that are in existence prior to the effective date of the winery
Correct.
zoning. So we're not requiring them to have a buffer zone.
On the 100-foot. No, not unless we feel like it needs it, depending on
Yeah.
where it's at. Or if we grandfather a building in that's within that 100-foot to be used, then we could say, well, you can use that building, but we would like it to.
You have to buffer it with trees or whatever to even though you're closer, you're within less than 100 feet. You still need to fit the requirements of noise reduction and all of that somehow at the property line. So if you're 25 feet from the property line, you're really going to reduce the volume of the music, for example, than if you're 100 feet from it to make it 60 decibel at the property line.
Right.
But I mean, that would be if you're reducing it for a special exemption.
So the other thought I would add to that is that that this is going to demand that the planning commission have some professional expertise to define exactly what that buffer looks like, and what kind of plant material is in there, what kind of bounding, what kind of features are there that's going to be an effective buffer.
With the special use permit.
Yeah, planting a couple of pine trees that are 4 feet high every 6 feet is not going to do it. You need an effective buffer that's going to
Right.
shield noise. And that takes some design expertise that this commission doesn't have and this office doesn't have. So we need to go outside that. I think.
So given that we seem to be leaving so much open to the site plan review, it seems to me that the pre-review is becoming even more important because we're leaving so much undefined, which you can tell makes me nervous. Because I feel like people are going to come in and show us something and then we're going to ask them to make lots and lots of changes if they haven't done that pre-review meeting. And that's not fair to the applicant.
I agree with you. Like, it is overwhelming, but I also think like somebody that's going to take something on like this shouldn't underestimate the fact that it's going to be a lot of work and a lot of planning, and you have to go into that knowing that. And if you don't do your research, that's on them. And I think that it's very difficult because you want to make this so black and white, but it can't be. It can't be when you're talking about utilizing spaces that are all so unique. And everybody all wineries are unique to themselves. So people are going to have to get creative, and they might have a really cool idea or a really neat building they want to use. And I think that us as a township, in order to keep the rural character, and we're going to have to be receptive to that as long as it's not creating problems. So I think it's difficult to overregulate this when it has a possibility to have everything be so unique.
Yeah.
That make
and
sense?
Yes, I don't have an issue with that. I'm trying to remember in our site plan review, are we requiring, not in this ordinance, in the zoning ordinance review that we're working on with Giffords Webster, are we requiring pre-reviews? Yeah, okay. So,
We are, and that's not one step necessarily. That can be several steps.
Honestly, I
Okay.
think that's awesome because it can be very intimidating to come in and not even know what to expect. If you've never done this before, it's like, I have no idea what I'm supposed to do. So I think what we've designed there and requiring that is helpful for both them and us.
We'll just add that we need some professional expertise to come into that process there to help Deb and one or two members of the planning commission look at what a buffer might look like in terms of design. I mean, the mounding, the plant material, the spacing.
so it'll be effective.
Yeah, so it's not just, I've seen too many times where they stick a 4-foot mound and pine trees on the top and it looks like heck and doesn't do anything.
I mean, to your point, regarding us using resources to define buffer, I think is fine to an extent, but I think it's on the applicant to have a landscape professional, an urban planner, or a land planner to say, this is why this works. That's what special use is all about. You mitigate our concerns, you show us why this site is going to benefit and be in line with the general you know, the criteria that we're looking for, the spirit of this ordinance, and you better nail it.
Right.
And if you don't, we're gonna let you know, and we're gonna give you an opportunity early
To
to
go back and find some.
flush these things out. But if you
may
don't,
not even think you need a buffer, and then we might say, well, you do.
yeah,
Okay, well, then give me time. I'm gonna go find a professional, help me plan this. I'll be back with my plan.
And that'll happen in 60 days.
Well, before yeah, it should be able to. I mean, I think if it's not complete, then it's not complete and it doesn't go forward. I think, I mean, you've got to have a complete application in front of you. If it calls for buffering, it's got to have a buffering plan. And it may be a crappy one. And if it is, then we'll reject it.
is
Mhm.
the 60 days from the formal submittal, or is that when the pre-review starts?
I've not seen
It's-
this.
Yeah,
all
I-
this.
It's not,
As soon as it hits Deb's desk.
It's got to be complete, though. They can't just put up one piece of paper down on your desk.
Yeah.
The way it was presented in the meeting last week was, once they submit a plan for a review, the clock is supposed to start. Now, obviously, it hasn't been approved. It's not approved by the Senate, but they said it only got read once and it got approved by the House. So some of these bills, because there's a lot of bills going through the House right now to improve housing. And they're really tapping into the communities that already have infrastructure of sewers and water and gas and electric running down the roads. We don't have a lot of that stuff, so it may or may not impact us, but it's some of this stuff that we're not going to get a choice.
Yep.
So, and it may require, pushing back and saying, hey, at this time, this does not meet our township requirements, and actually saying no and go back and do a better plan.
Yeah, and I went through the process with Deb, actually. I actually started with our previous zoning administrator and then went with Deb on it. And she's very helpful in guiding you through before you even submit a piece of paper. Unfortunately, I had already submitted
Submitted a piece of
paper. Yeah, so it was a process, but yeah, before anything even starts with that pre interview and guidance was extremely helpful.
Could there be something in the language that says the preliminary review process is extremely important to get to an appropriate submittal? We highly recommend at least 2 reviews with our planner before the formal submission. Even if it's outside of the legislation, at least and then if they just come in and don't do that, then we already have, like, you didn't heed our recommendation. You gave us something that's incomplete. We're not going to pass it.
Well,
And
that's why I just asked if it was a requirement, if the pre-review is a
I
requirement.
don't know if legislation makes it a requirement or not. but-
Within
About
within the township, it is a requirement to have those pre-conferences. And I've been doing a lot of them myself. But you guys want to be more involved, so I really I got Keith involved in a lot of them last year. And it may have been just Keith and I. And, I tried to get at least 2 people to come, but sometimes people aren't available. But it's going to be required, because I'm not even going to pursue them if we don't have a couple
That's good.
bodies from the planning commission coming in, sitting down with them and making sure we're all seeing the same things for the master plan. We're seeing the same things, how it fits with our zoning, and that we're all on the same page, because it's going to be up to that pre-conference to make sure that you have everything to go forward. And I'm trying to put the exhibits and everything together so it's prepped, but it's going to be that committee that's going to determine when does it go to the planning commission.
So are we okay with the 100-foot
I
setback?
think so. I just want to make one clarification. We have taken some steps in the last year to include some professional engineering and planning advice to the township, either through Gordy Fraser or through Giffords Webster. So there's a professional planning component in here that we need to have in this process as part of a more complex review of a site plan or special use.
So do we need verbiage in here about that, or is that something that we would, like, in the pre-review conference, we would be able to see that we've got a situation where we're going to definitely need some noise buffering?
I think we have that, the Giffords Webster stuff that
Yeah.
came through with the site plan and special use permit
Okay.
material there about being able to escrow money to pay for that outside expertise on the engineering and the planning side.
Now, if they've used their own engineer or landscape designer, then
then
We're
we have
okay.
one that's gonna review what they're submitting. We wouldn't rely on all their stuff. If it's been done professionally, then that's great, because there's less to work to do.
Okay,
you know.
Mhm.
everybody good? Can we move
So,
on?
just for clarification on the 100-foot setback, what is not allowed in the setback?
I would say.
Just structure-
Structures and,
But other things may be subject to the review of the planning commission and necessary buffering that might mitigate any negative impacts given adjacent land uses and proposed activities or something.
Mhm.
so you're not,
So,
you're not
Temporary
naming.
structures would be allowed possibly.
Potentially. That gets to your point, Michael, about trying to have some flexibility in there, but then it's not just allowed, it's.
Right.
It's allowed subject to review and.
Yeah, subject to review.
number.
Okay. All right.
Okay. So just the link to the landscaping chapter here and elsewhere, we have a whole chapter in the ordinance about
Yeah,
that.
that's an easy fix.
Mhm.
Where are you right now on number?
Comment 5.
That was 5.
Now on comment 5.
Which is 6.
Okay.
I was troubled by the retail sale of food may be by the winery or a third party. So that statement stands alone, and it, to me, kind of said, well, that's a grocery store.
Okay, so third party covers the use of food trucks and catering. That's what third party means in that situation. The sales of grocery goods it's regulated by MDARD actually on what like a farm market or winery can sell as far as third party goods so it's a law that like if you're only selling cottage kitchen items, things that you made in your kitchen, right? But then you want to expand and you want to sell Scott's mustard, for example. That if once you cross that line with MDARD and are selling goods that aren't made in your kitchen, you're no longer covered under cottage law. So therefore you get a license through MDARD and they come and check you off and you're approved to sell like other third party goods, which would be locally made honeys, locally made syrups. So that's what makes it so like a farm market can't be essentially become a grocery store, I guess. But if we need to define that more so that it covers third-party goods, I get what you're saying. I mean, if that's too confusing, because we said in here that we could have food trucks and the catering as long as you could do catering as long as they're licensed with the commercial kitchen, because you really can't tell somebody that has a commercial kitchen that they can't utilize that kitchen in their winery. Does that make sense? Which we had talked about at previous meetings, so.
It does, but this is potentially prepackaged food items. There's a whole limit. It just says food. So produced by a third party being sold at the winery, that could be milk, bread, cheese, I don't know, right?
I mean, essentially, but you can't, the thing is like, that's. You're licensed through MDARD to do those things. So I don't think the township can stop.
Licensed by MDR to sell material that comes from another party that, I mean, if you want.
I can't sell, like, so our market, for example, or even, Uncle Bill's Pies, he can't sell anybody else's prepackaged food unless he gets the license from MDARD. They come and check us off and make sure that we have, we have it's a license that you pay for to be able to do that.
What's the name of the license that you're talking about?
So I'll have to look it up, Denise.
Okay.
I think the Altonans
Yeah.
on M72 are the only ones I know of that have an MDARD license to do that type of thing with their little cappuccino farm market stand down there. It's the only time I've seen a letter come in from MDARD that supports
MDARD.
that type of
So
thing.
They came in and talked to us about it. And actually what we thought when we initially opened that, since we made things under cottage law, this was so long ago, that we couldn't, that we only needed this one specific license. And he said, no, you're going to sell some so-and-so's jams and jellies, you have to have this. And so therefore it changed. We weren't allowed to make anything under cottage law anymore. Make sense?
Yeah.
I
All
have
of
a
our
cons-
packaging had to therefore have the full
But it's this winery or a third party, so if it's coming
Right.
from someplace else and you're selling it retail at your winery.
I guess I have to try to,
And we currently don't allow food trucks in the township. There's nothing else in the ordinance anywhere that allows for food trucks.
but we had added it to this winery. I mean, it'd been-
I
it's been in
I
the-
see it's in here, but I'm just saying we don't have it anywhere else. And the only time from my perspective in zoning, if a food truck is looked at as a caterer. So if somebody hires a caterer to take care of an event
Yeah.
and they're paying for that caterer to be there, it can be a food truck. And that could be your caterer, but to have people going up and buying from a food truck, that is currently not regulated in any of our zoning, anywhere else anyway, just FYI.
So do you want to take food trucks out and then you can do what one business does? They have a food truck parked inside their building, which would be the catering. I mean, with every rule, there's a kind of a way to get around it. So, I had a question about E4, complete meals by the winery are allowed in conjunction with events and promotional activities. So you have hors d'oeuvres on number 1, and then you have 4 complete meals.
So the next comment that Randy commented talks about that as well, that number 1 and number 4 are contradictory. I think a lot of the next few comments actually run into this, like, what's the difference between a promotional activity and event? So, which I really got into that. That's the main part of all this packet. So on the first page, I talked about addressing that. And there's a proposed revision of section E. So I think that we need to really, and I totally understand, like, that makes it so it seems like you can just do that all the time. So we need to define that. So if you look at the proposed revision of section E, food service is allowed provided that the winery obtains all necessary permits. Food service operations are subject to the following. So there's a definition 1 for a standard daily food service, which would be the small plates, hors d'oeuvres, and seasonal soups and snacks. Operational hours tells us how long the food can be served for. And then number 3 is expanded meal services. So that's for events and promotional activities, which we will later in this packet. I changed how I think a better way to define those. But essentially, complete meals are permitted only in the following circumstances: under events and special promotional activities. So limited time marketing activities that exceed the standard daily service. And in order to serve a complete meal, you have to meet the kitchen requirements under the health department permits, which means you have to have a commercial kitchen. We also said that catered foods would be allowed in conjunction with events, which I feel like that's, if you're going to allow catering though, and a caterer is going to come in, they also have to meet the standards of the health code and what's expected.
Yeah.
So
They have to be licensed. So, yeah, when you run them all together, it's hard to differentiate between each service.
right. So that's why
Yeah.
I sectioned it off better than what we had before.
In the packet,
In the packet.
in this other one.
It's changed.
It's removed.
If you look at the packet that I gave you.
Oh, I'm sorry. When you said packet, I was,
Yep. If you look at that,
yes.
there's a proposed revision to make that more clear, to differentiate so that it doesn't look like complete meals can be served all day long
Yep. First page.
on the first page.
Yep.
Yeah. So, you said that you did it, I didn't, I read this cursory, overview, but in the ordinance, could you give me an example of promotional activities?
Yeah. So I think that we need to just get to that part where we change this. So when I did a ton of research, a lot of Randy's comments and a lot of our discussion has been around promotional activities and events and setting a standard of more than 100 people and less than 100 people. And that does make it very difficult. And when I did a ton of different research and looking at other surrounding ordinances and looking at the lawsuit on the peninsula, I think that the way that we have it right now, where it defines a promotional activity and event based off of the number of people, is probably not the smartest for both legality towards the township and for the winery itself. So it seems that the best way to do this is to probably change those two sections, which it seems like, oh, you're changing the whole ordinance, but it's really only H and I that we are changing. So H is promotional activities and I is events.
Oh.
So, can I just read through some of this stuff that helps define it better, guys? 'Cause
Are you,
it's better to not use the number of people there versus base this off of safety requirements and like fire department code versus putting a number on events and promotional activities. Because otherwise, like you said, a promotional activity seems like it can be all day, every day. However, it's not. A promotional activity is essentially like a brand activity, which by the MLCC, you can only have 3 a month.
So the difference though is that when you're conducting your activities in a building, there's an occupancy. We know that there is 60 people allowed in this building.
Right,
By the fire chief.
right.
When we have activities outside, there is no limit.
There's still, if you, well, let me just get to where I talked about that. If you shift to measuring it by safety standards and an outdoor activity, you're still required by the fire department. They'll still give you a number of overflow parking spaces that you have to have, dependent on the lay of the land and what you have available. It's not unlimited, because you have to show that you can get fire trucks in there safely and that emergency vehicles can move throughout the facility safely during an event, and that will all be determined on your site plan review before you even come in and you meet with the fire chief and they tell you like, yep, this is where your driveway is going to be, that will work, this is where your overflow parking is going to be. So
This gets to a point though that there's only one site plan review. You don't come back over and over again for each event. The planning commission approves a special use permit for this based on a site plan. You don't come back to have that re-reviewed every event you have.
right, but you would have a plan for your events that are gonna utilize the overflow parking and that would utilize special bathrooms that are, like, that would all be laid out in your site plan review. Like, if you're gonna have events, then this is what you're gonna have to have based on what the health department tells you. Like, you're gonna have to have a extra porta potty and you're gonna have to have, this is your overflow parking, you have to have it all laid out beforehand so that you don't have to come back every single time a winery wants to have an event. It's already set in their site plan review. They know it's required of them.
so you're saying that you come in for a site plan review and you think I'll have a 100, maybe 150 people, and then you end up having an event that there's 500 people and you don't have to come back and you don't, what originally the buffer zone was set up maybe for 100-foot buffer for 200 people. And now you're going to have a 500-person event
So you're not allowed to.
because,
If you're only set up and your site plan review says that you only have enough room on your property for 200 people, then you don't have any room for 500 people. And if you do that,
Are you turning them away?
that's what every other business has to do. If you try to go to a restaurant and they're over capacity, sorry, you can't come in. Sorry, you can't park here. Or full. I don't understand how you can't predict that and you can't stop that from happening, but all you can do is hope that the winery or whatever business is coming in is going to follow what's expected of them. And if they're not, then they're in violation and the township has the right to
Shut
shut them down.
Having worked in a winery, it's very common to have big tour buses come up and, 24 people get off of it and it's one parking spot. So I do understand capacity and parking, and we ended up having lots of people in a winery that we were having problems legally having them inside the building. So I think the issue of saying there's parking for 200 cars or 100 cars, which is equal to 200 people, that theory doesn't hold up very well, especially when you have limousines and
That's true.
tour buses and such coming into these venues.
Yeah.
And they don't have to let you know ahead of time that they're coming?
No,
They just show up?
no.
You can, as a winery, you can request that they let you know,
Mhm,
and you can turn them away.
mhm.
No room for you.
Is it my understanding that the promotional activity area and what, you know, what it can support with people and parking, that's concurrent with the special use of the original layout of the cidery, say? So they're not coming in later after they've gotten their special use, they built their cidery, and then they say, oh, we didn't know we wanted to do this, but now we want to do a promotional activity. Can we come in front of you to show you what we want to do? Or is it only, it'd be an amendment, okay?
But you're hoping to avoid that. You're hoping to have all this figured out so that
Okay.
you know,
Much fun as it might be, they want to.
you know what you're allowed to do. You know what how many you're allowed to have. And so,
But to your point, like there's a legal side of this, which we got to respect. And, but within special use approval, I don't know where that falls because if you have an area and you're like, yeah, you might think that you, by the fire department and the parking could support 500 people if you did this twice a month through the summer or whatever. But we got to consider the whole of the submittal, including that element. And we really suggest you cap that at 200. Would we then be in legal jeopardy? Okay, so, but you could also say, well, we really like your site plan, but there's something on there we don't like. I don't,
right.
you know,
So
So, one of the
mic-
comments, I know, sorry.
No, it's not just you.
I think it's me.
It's everybody.
On 1B, on the second page, it has the total building coverage of 7,000 square feet or less.
I don't know where you are, Denise. 1B.
1B,
One be in the.
Article 5.
On the comments page.
Well, on Article 5, you start with Article 2 definitions, then Article 5 supplemental development. You flip the page.
Okay,
And
yeah,
it's
permitted uses.
under, it has wineries and tasting rooms, number 1 at the top.
Yep.
Okay. B, the total building coverage. If you can have up to 7,000 square feet because of you have production area and things like that, but the tasting room could be up to 2,000 square feet of that 7,000. So that would be an adequate size tasting room with your merchandise and other things. I don't know what else could be in there. Maybe some food products that you want to sell or snacks or with a online app for fire inspection code that 2,000 square feet would be, wrote it on one of these pieces of paper.
Where's
In a
the,
second, are you suggesting a 2,000 square foot?
Yes.
Okay.
So a 2,000 square foot would be approximately 134 people with tables and chairs.
Okay,
are you suggesting restricting the area?
Of the tasting room, not the total, because your production, you may do production for yourself and for other wineries, bottling and all that, and grow that
And what,
agricultural side of your business.
yeah,
You're-
I'm just trying to understand the reasoning for that, to limit the amount of people inside the building,
That and make
the
it
goal.
fit within the rural character of the community.
I guess I'm connecting that with Town Line Cider, for example.
Yeah, Town Line Cider is the perfect example of melding in with the environment, with the orchards around it.
I think that's the image a lot of people have of
Yeah.
a winery in Whitewater Township being building 7,000 square feet or thereabouts, a portion of it, a third, so being the tasting area,
Yeah.
seating area for people looking out over grapes and apples and whatever else is being used.
We have orchards. We don't have a view of the bay from Elk Lake Road.
Mm-hmm.
And to minimize the traffic impact in neighborhoods, you'd want something more or less along Elk Lake Road, like Old Mission has everything up Center Road mostly. If you look at a map, and M22 and Leelanau and 72 going west. Trying to keep it more in where.
But if the square foot of the building is 7,000 feet,
Yeah, you can
does
keep,
it really matter?
it could, no, they
what-
could have
what
4,000.
portion of that is tasting? I'm just not following why we're gonna restrict the tasting area size. If the building's already 7,000.
Yeah, the tasting room is ancillary to the farming, the agricultural district. It's not a commercial zone, and you're having like a bar with a little trees in the back.
Like, I don't know what the equipment looks like to make wineries or cideries. I'm not quite sure what that looks like.
Okay, can you,
So-
if you go to, have you ever been to, I hate to say names of businesses, but Shorts in Bel Air? They have all their equipment behind glass when you walk through. Town Line has it in the back of their tasting room area.
Yeah,
I'm not so,
I'm just not sure why you would need to restrict that tasting room area if the footprint of the building is already gonna be 7,000 square feet restricted.
it doesn't, well, the building footprint, I don't know what it's going to be. That's up to the individual
Shall
business.
not be greater than 7,000 square
Yeah,
feet.
they could make it 4,000. It doesn't have to be 7, just
Okay.
maximum 7. They can choose whatever they want,
Okay,
but
I don't want to repeat myself, so I've said my part.
yeah, I'm not quite grasping
Well,
what
you're trying to limit the number of people that could be at an indoor event, right? By saying that the tasting room is a maximum of 2,000 square feet.
I'm
It seems to me
saying.
that's what that does.
Well, it does limit it, but it's agribusiness. It's not, it's a business associated in promoting agriculture.
So it's the hierarchy. You want to make
Yeah.
sure that the production.
Yeah, you're
portion of
using
it
the
is greater.
product from the farm, you're making it into something. You move the business through from the ground all the way to the retail. But it starts with farming.
And so the retail is secondary.
Yeah, it's secondary to what you're doing.
I see. Rod, do you have an idea of like the processing portion of the winery? What kind of square footage that is?
I would say, from my experience, in a winery, maybe a third to half of the floor space in a building is dedicated to making the wine. So you're pushing some limits there.
Yeah.
I'm not sure why we even want to regulate that. I feel like that's up to them where they want to.
And it's a site plan review.
Well, I guess the
Hmm.
question to me is, what do you have in mind here? There's a lot of things talked about. We've said 200 people, 100 people. It sounds like the cap may be coming off, and I'm struggling trying to visualize what we're talking about. Is it a very large facility now, or are we trying to keep a very rural, smaller facility?
So
I'm getting a little lost.
I agree. So we said the 7,000 square foot building and we've gone round and round with that. And I feel like we all agreed on that a while ago that the building would be 7,000 square feet. Now, dependent on the size of the property that the building is going on, that kind of regulates how much outdoor space you have. So you've talked a lot about how do you regulate outdoor events not being crazy huge. So if you go to page 3 of the packet, there's a section that says regulating outdoor events.
Oh, your packet.
Of my packet, I'm sorry, of the information I just gave you.
On which page?
The third page. So regulating outdoor events. When an event moves outside, the regulatory focus shifts from building capacity to neighborhood impact, specifically noise, lighting, and traffic. From a legal and planning perspective in Michigan, outdoor weddings or events are the most common source of friction between wineries and residents. Here's how to handle outdoor events in the ordinance to stay safety-based, which that's what we're trying to shift from number of occupancy to more of a safety-based and to defend like how many people can be there. So if for an outdoor event, number one, you'd swap building occupancy for site capacity. So since we aren't using a 100-person cap anymore, you define outdoor capacity based on two objective factors. The health department sanitation. The number of guests is limited by the number of available restrooms, permanent or high quality portable units. So the health department would tell you that you have this many restrooms, you can have this many people unless you bring in a high quality portable system. And that, again, is only temporary. You can't have those. We clearly define that as a temporary structure for an event. Parking emergency access. The safe limit is the number of cars that can fit on the on-site without blocking fire lanes. So that includes the fire department coming in and looking at your day-to-day parking along with your plan for your overflow parking. And that will tell you how many people that you can have parking there. And if you're blocking fire lanes and the fire department shows up because people are parked everywhere, there's your problem. Like, because if you're putting a cap on the number, you're going to run into legal issues because if the fire department says your building can have 200 people in your building, and then the township says, well, you can only have an event of 100 people, it's illegal to do that. You can't do that because you're impeding on their ability to make sales and to be profitable.
So completely understanding this now, I think, at least a lot more than I did. And what you just said and what I'm reading, my opinion would be to emphasize that within the application of site plan, and if there is an area to be defined for promotional or agritourism activities, that this element within the site plan, or if it's later an amended submission to an existing special use permit, that the applicant will submit it and we will have to look at the request in the totality of the site. Well, and the end's going to be safety, all the things that are legally we have to do, like safety, but like you said, noise, the spirit of the site, and then I don't know the language yet, but that it has to be consistent with, if it's being done with the site in the beginning, you say that's going to be a big element, and it's got to respect the community around it. It's got to be in the spirit of our ordinance. You don't cap anything. You probably don't even have a number. You just say, we're going to, one by one through special use, we're going to consider this, but there's going to be a lot of criteria that we're going to consider to consider approving an outdoor area for this use. And then at the end, after you talk about the site and all the criteria and all the different variables, buffers, location, neighbors, every site's different, topography, then you have to meet safety criteria, parking, noise, I think you should be up there. And then ultimately, all of those are within that one element of your submittal have to be considered in themselves and how it affects the whole site and the totality of the site plan.
Yes.
Something like that. Could you write that down?
So first of all, I feel like we're writing an ordinance about events, outdoor events, instead of one about wineries. But besides that,
Yeah.
which I'm a little concerned about. But the other thing is, so we're having a wedding. A lot of people hire buses to bring guests to and from the wedding because people are going to be drinking, right? So they don't want their guests drinking and driving. So now I don't have a parking issue. I've got buses dropping people off because the bus isn't staying, it's going to come back and pick them up. So then the only thing that's regulating the occupancy is the number of toilets. And is that enough?
I mean, your tent size. you could say.
That's what I was gonna say.
You can
You
say-
define an area
Yep,
and you
this
can
is
only get
where
so many people in that area without saying
Your
you
tent
can.
is gonna go, and then the fire, and this is the size tent that you're approved for on this lot, and this is the biggest tent you can have, and therefore this is the largest amount of people you can have under that tent.
And you don't say that this will constrain the amount of people. You say this is the location we're approving because of sound, because of safety, because of all the other elements. And then you know, no matter how many buses, they're not gonna be able to fill that tent any more than what it can take, especially for a wedding or event.
Okay.
And we can do that, like if we say we could probably have this size tent will, internally, we know how many people can be under a tent of a certain size, right? So we can consider that while we're looking at the site plan.
I'm kind of feeling like we should be breaking this into two separate ordinances, one that allows wineries and cideries and one that's specifically about
I
outdoor
agree with you,
events.
but the problem is a winery, you can't tell a winery they can't have events, and so.
I'm not saying that, but what we would say is that they're allowed to have events that are in accordance with our event ordinance.
Well, so
Yeah,
they're allowed, okay, so
in the building.
they're allowed to have, I wish I would have given you guys this before so you could have read through it. So, okay, so there is something in here too about a winery and how we prevent these wineries in our township from becoming commercial use where they're just a wedding venue every other weekend, because that's not what we're intended to have.
Okay.
And so for the township to, let me just find where that's at, because I did put that in here, because that's obviously not what we want. For the township to control that. Just give me 1 second. You put things into 3 different categories. So go to
this the tiered-
the proposed definition for agritourism. It's the 4th to last page, 5th to last page. Revised definitions for section, Article 2 definitions. Agritourism, it's towards the bottom. You guys see it? So let's go through this. This will help us figure that out. The practice of this is what I'm proposing for our agritourism definition under the initial definition portion of the ordinance. The practice of visiting a working farm, orchard, winery, or agricultural operation for the purposes of purchase, enjoyment, education, or active involvement in activities of the farm or enterprise. To qualify as agritourism under this ordinance, the activity must be clearly incidental and subordinate to the primary agricultural use of the property, which is growing crops in the production. Agritourism activities are classified by the potential impact on the surrounding neighborhood. So there's 3 categories, and this is how agritourism is defined in lots of places in Michigan and throughout other ordinances. So category 1 is a low impact, and that would be agricultural incidents to the winery that have a minimal impact on the surrounding area, like wine tasting, farm stands, and U-pick operations. Category 2 is a moderate impact, activities that support the market of agricultural products but may generate occasional noise or traffic, includes live acoustic music, educational workshops, and farm-to-table dinners. Category 3 is high impact, activities that have a higher potential for off-site impacts due to guest volume, amplified music, or lighting, including wedding, festivals, and concerts. So why this definition works for Whitewater Township? It protects the farm requirement by saying that the activity must be incidental and subordinate to prevent a property owner from owning a wedding venue and planting 3 rows of grapes just to call it a winery. There's a legal hook for regulation. It explicitly links the definition to the impact categories we developed. So the planning commissioner can say, this event is a category 3 versus this event is a category 1. And it aligns with state language that mirrors the language used by the Michigan Department of Agriculture and Rural Development, which makes it much harder for a winery to claim that it's being unreasonable or anti-farming. And then I listed the benefits of it and how the same thing, it creates a regulatory ladder. We aren't treating a 10-person wine class, which is a category 2, the same as a 200-person wedding, which is a category 3. This makes the ordinance proportional and fair. Strengths and enforcement. If the winery starts hosting loud concerts every night, the zoning administrator can point to the category 3. And this has been moved beyond a simple tasting room activity and need a special use permit for that impact. And we also say how many of those you can have a month, which a live concert, that's like to the extreme. It's not even in our ordinance, but, and then the language is favored by the Michigan Lake and River Association and the Michigan Townships Association because it balances the right to farm and the zoning authority. So when I changed I in the events, we have only, you have to look at what kind you're offering.
So can we just say we just want category 1?
No.
But I can
Activities
picture,
inherently agricultural.
I was just gonna say, I can picture a worksheet that we need when we're doing these site reviews that what we need to look for category 3, you know, versus category 2 and category 1.
So if you go to, there's a decision matrix thing I put on here that kind of gives you what, I should have named these, you guys.
We might have to look at this.
Binary activity decision matrix. It's a couple of pages before we just were, and it looks like a little graph.
Yeah. It's like,
This gives you good examples.
Sorry.
I mean, if you look at the suggested ordinance I put in to replace the H and I, this makes sense, but it tells you right here under legal basis what you have the right to say that we can and cannot do. So a daily tasting room, that's a license from the MLCC. See at the bottom, the legal basis. It gives you an example of what it might be and the frequency of what you can regulate. So a daily tasting room is unlimited. You can't regulate that because the MLCC, that's part of the license. The brand promotional activity, that's what will become our promotional activities that we had in there, where it seemed like you could have a promotional activity every day. Legally, per the MLCC, you can only have 3 a month. And that would be like, where you have a special event and you give, like, your wine glass gets to go home with the person for the day, or you're handing out brand promotional, you're handing out t-shirts. You legally, a winery can only do that 3 days a month, and they have to give a 5-day leeway to the MLCC to let them know they're doing it. So the way I rewrote the ordinance is that Whitewater just requires a copy of that paperwork that you turned into the MLCC that you're having it, and you only have 3 a month, and that the MLCC regulates.
So before they have it, when they've got that notice from the MLCC, they've got to show it to Deb or something.
Right,
Is that
just say
right?
like, here, I sent this in, we're gonna do this. And the best thing about that is, how we had it written before about these promotional activities, that they could be, it seemed like, well, a promotional activity was under 100 people, right? And we said you could have, and the way it was written, basically you could have them whenever you wanted. Well, legally you can't, you can only have 3 a month. And then secondly, if you're capping at 100, you're really doing the winery a disservice too, because if they have capacity for 200 people at a promotional event, but the township's only telling them they can have 100, you have to go by what the fire code says they're legally allowed to have. So then,
Or their site plan.
or their site plan, yeah. And then the Ag Festival, which is tier 2, that would be like a little bit larger event. And that's under the Right to Farm Act. And an example of that would be like a fall festival or a farm to table dinner. And the reason those are protected by the Right to Farm Act is because you're doing something that's directly related to the agriculture in your farm. And those are unlimited. But those are also in the township site plan. So like if you are planning to do those things, like you're going to have a fall festival, that's when we talked about knowing ahead of time what size your individual site plan is approved for that site, like how many overflow parking spots you need if you're ever going to do something like that. And then you look at the commercial event. So this is where it's most debatable and where it's up for a lot of legal issues. So the best way I have found and looked at, and I have a lot of, if you read through this whole thing, it talks about it multiple times. You can't really legally stopping wineries from being having an occasional wedding is almost impossible. And it's been part of a lot of lawsuits recently. So the best way a township can go about that is to regulate it by safety measures, which would be, you can regulate how many they can have a month. And this isn't just weddings. This is like if a corporation wants to rent out part of the venue for the night and have a dinner.
Mhm.
Like it can be anything like that, but the township can set special requirements where you can only, like right now, how ours is written, you can have 4 events that are larger, 4 in a month. it requires a special use permit. But this is all by local zoning, and and that was under section I in our original, under our original draft that's online, that we have in the packet. I is events. It was just saying exceeds over 100 people. Well, it's, like I said before, it's best to bring this back to safety measures and to fire code instead of numbers of people, because it can get a little out of hand. And so I did rewrite both H and I in here according to all the information and the legality things that I looked up. Where are those at? In the middle of the packet. And I think, honestly, I think that it's improved and it's better, because I do agree with a lot of Randy's
Oh, it's
comments
the page
that.
before the graph or before the decision matrix.
Because I do feel that it was like, we just keep coming back to this event size and number of people. And so I think, and everything I read was like, and everything I look at is capping it, and using the 100-person thing is not gonna suit anybody well, both legally for wineries and legally for the township.
How big is big to you, Sadie?
Well,
Serious, it is a serious
how
question.
big is big? I mean,
Yeah.
I think that's honestly, it's dependent on the size of the wine, like over 100 people is a lot of people. But at the same time, I found just in my own business, sometimes I'm really bad at counting numbers, or I think like, oh, there's so many people here and there's only like 70. Like, it's not what I thought.
It's only 63.
Right. But like,
Yeah, and look how
also,
tiny it is.
some people are gonna say, oh, well, a winery is coming to our township having a huge festival, it's like 500 people. Well, what if that winery sits on a 300-acre lot? Why can't they have a festival that big? If they have the means to do it. That's where it's gonna be different for every single place, and you're gonna have to.
I think the answer to that is why not have a commercial space someplace where you can support commercial activity without restrictions?
Because I don't view that as a commercial activity. I don't think visiting a farm is a commercial activity.
Well, it becomes more of that when it's an event and it's got hundreds of people. And I guess I was just gonna mention, I don't really agree with this swapping building occupancy for site capacity. If it's gonna be considered or limited by the number of bathrooms you're putting in there, that's easy. And then I look at parking and I look at a 20-acre site, and I just did some calculations. You would have somewhere around 2,500 parking spaces on 20
Not if you have to have
acres.
fruit on there.
What?
Not if we have to have our fruit on there.
Between
There-
in our
there-
winery.
There's no
This-
limit to how much acreages the fruit has to be. There's nothing in the ordinance says you gotta have so many acres of fruit.
I mean, we
So
should
you
change
could
that.
just have 3 vines?
So you could have 3 vines in all parking lots.
I mean, we need to alter that.
Well,
Yeah.
I mean, it does say that it's gotta be secondary in our definition.
Shouldn't the most powerful control here be the site plan and the area that
It sounds like it.
you're designating, and even if we don't say it's the size of the tent, but it's the area. And we're not telling you how many people you can have, but we're saying that this area is appropriate on your site for this type of use. And you got to follow all the criteria based on what kind of event it is. And I mean, it supports. At that time, are we saying that it can do what is a stage 3 event, or what are we? We're not dictating what events they can do. You're just saying there's different type of impact based on the number on the event. But we just say, hey, and the totality of the site, we've made this decision. And it has nothing to do with how many people can be there. It has to do with the location
Safety.
and the safety and noise and all the things that the law says we can't.
The swapping the building occupancy for site capacity, that's just for outdoor events. That's not saying that if you're having an indoor event, you have to still to follow your building occupancy.
just saying it's unlimited when it's outdoors. It just, and if it's only limited by the number of bathrooms and parking spaces, you can load up a 20-acre site with 2,500 parking spaces.
It's nice,
And
limited
a lot
by,
of porta potties.
yeah.
And
It's
for
limited
a rural
by
portion.
What the fire chief says that you're not blocking the right of way of emergency vehicles though.
There's parking lots that are the acres.
Yeah.
With that, they use by the code.
If you do one of these events, can the whole site support it, or is these events concentrated in a certain area? I mean, I think everybody's
Yes.
everywhere, right? And then there's a 10 area, but I'm trying to understand how we could control this, but
It,
I think the reality is that they'd be everywhere on the site, right? It's not like they just go to the tent, hang out.
Depends on how
But-
you have your,
but if,
what event it is. and how
but
it's
if
set
we
up.
do state a minimum requirement for how much square footage or acreage or whatever is for the actual growing of the fruit, that's gonna help us kind of corner people into
Over
a
50,
square footage.
we had over 50%.
No, we
it-
don't.
At
I don't
one
think we have
time,
anything in here right now, though.
not now, but
Yeah.
when we started, that's what we had was
Right.
over 50%. And there's two distinctions for me, the permanent structure, the cidery itself and the tasting room, and then tents. The permanent structure, for me, 2,000 square foot for the tasting room limits the tasting room size, but when you can have outside temporary structures, you're really not limiting the number of people that you can
Mhm.
you can have at an event or anything. But you're still keeping the feel of the neighborhood and of the township in with a smaller footprint of a building. You can come back 5 years from now, change this ordinance and say, now you can have 7,000 square feet in a tasting room. And, that would be great for a business. If they had that business, they could expand. When you build a building, you can plan if you have to expand where you would expand it. When you're building it, you don't have to, I don't know, people do add on their houses, but without planning. But that's where I'm coming from. I want a smaller footprint of a building, keeping the openness of the agricultural district, the product that's being produced, and still giving the farmer the income from their product. When I think that
I don't know.
you do it,
I-
two
I
things
think
here.
there's Two different things.
Yeah,
We're talking
we're
about
doing.
events and now we're talking about the square footage of the building again.
Yeah, because it's kind of two different things. There's the cidery, the actual physical building of the cidery and the tasting room. And then you have tents and things and festivals and all that.
Temporarily, like this is not all the time. I mean, you're
Right,
restricting
correct.
how often this can happen. So you're
Yeah.
saying, well, you want to keep the rural character of the neighborhood. Well, this isn't, none of these events are permanent things.
Correct. That's why the permanent structure should be smaller, fitting in with the community and the.
You're suggesting that we change the 7,000 square foot building.
No, you're not saying building, you're saying 7,000 square
Coverage.
feet. So part of that, it's the building for your production, your, I'm going to do fermenting and bottling, and cidery is going to be different requirements than winery, and the actual tasting room. You can push a lot of cider through a smaller production area and into a tasting room. You can bottle it, can it, distribute it. You don't need a large tasting room.
So you're talking about limiting the size of the tasting room
Yeah, and then
within the
because without
7,000.
with the tasting room, you have an outdoor service area as well.
Mhm.
And with that, you have to physically limit, you have to design the space outside of your building that is where you can, people can drink alcohol outside of that. Because if you have I'll say a composition of a site where you have your taste room, your outdoor drinking area, it has to be delineated from where children would be with petting animals or, walking through a maze or everything like that. So you still have that extra perimeter of drinking area that you defined it with your business. It's not just inside of a building, but the actual footprint of the building to fit in with Whitewater Township is a smaller size than, let's say, Old Mission, because they have the view of the bay
Right.
and all
So
that.
we
We
set it at
we have
7,000
view of the
square
orchards.
Yeah,
So we said at 7,000 square feet. So what are you suggesting?
I'm saying for the tasting room size, I don't know what it takes to do the production. I don't know what they're going to be producing. They could be producing maybe 3 different things. Their production area might be quite large. I have no idea. And I don't even know if 7,000 square feet you could set, I just don't know what it would take to do different things. But the actual tasting room where people come in and sample and taste and sit, and, that's a more confined space than, because I'm not saying, I don't know what you're saying. Are you saying 7,000 square foot tasting room? Or are you talking 7,000 square feet for production?
That's what
And
they want to use it for. We're saying that the building, the winery itself, which would be the tasting room, whether they want to produce their stuff in there or not, is maximum 7,000 square feet.
that's,
there
They
could-
might have another building on the farm that you can.
yeah,
put
that's,
Containers of.
yeah,
cider.
that's what I'm saying.
Oh, is
so-
that what this says then?
Yes,
Because
I
it
mean,
says
you stop that.
the total building coverage shall not be greater than 7,000 square feet. To my reading of that would be that that's the total building coverage for the property.
Yeah, that's the way I read that.
That you can't have more than the 7,000 square feet. So your tasting and production is all has to fit in that. You can't have something else on the property besides that 7,000 square feet.
So we're saying if in the 20 acres, if there's a building that you're gonna make your tasting room, but you have other farm buildings on the property,
I think that's how this reads right now.
Same. That was why
other buildings on the property.
that's part of it.
It can't be more than 7,000
that
square
was
feet.
kind of why we got into that discussion about a ratio of
I think we
lot
talked
coverage
about,
to site, because it struck me as strange that for 7,000 square feet, that would be true with 20 acres, 40 acres, 80 acres.
Yeah, it's
that-
usually a percentage.
it's usually a percentage rather than an actual number, but remember we did the drawing there and kind of showed that as a ratio, but.
I
then
don't know
we-
why we went this way. All I know.
Oh. I thought you.
Val lost the thread.
We're,
I guess
we have to have a meeting of the minds. We have to start with, with the definition and,
we've
Yeah.
been doing this, so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
we're like-
I'd like to make a suggestion. I'm just looking at the time too and what we still have to get through. How do you feel about having Giffords Webster look at your packet, what we've got right now, as well as the attorney, and giving us feedback and continuing from that point?
I think that'll give us a good starting point. I mean, well, this is the starting
Instead-
point.
Yeah, instead of
Take
us
us to
trying
the
to.
next
hush-
level.
Yeah,
I think if we give them what we have and give them this, that
Mhm.
suggests changing the event and see what they all think is best.
yeah,
Because none of us are experts, and like you said, we might be missing something, but.
right.
Well, that takes it out of your hands too, and it takes it out of us writing language and on the
Mhm.
fly.
We've been doing this, yeah, I think, I just don't wanna get to where. I think we are at that point, like we paid for legal once, but now I think we need to do it again.
Right.
And. Well,
Right.
yeah, if we can
And-
give them both
and-
of these so they can compare and see what they think is best, because.
Yeah.
both of what are you talking about? What-
Giffords Webster
The
and,
act- the-
oh,
The existing ordinance that's in the draft that
A
we have,
draft.
and along with what was the change to possibly change H and I to not
And-
capacity, more to safety standards.
To
See what they
include-
say about it.
To include Randy's comments.
I
Yeah.
personally
Yeah.
like the definition of agritourism. I like the levels here. I like a
Mhm.
lot of what you have
Yeah.
in here. I'm not sure about the parking one, but,
And yeah, like I said, some of it was just to try to, like, I don't know if I'm right. I just tried to look at some of your concerns and look the information I could find out there on it.
this is not easy work.
no,
And the townships have borne the brunt of past missteps in ordinance
Right,
language.
like we're behind the times here.
Yeah.
Is it possible to find a location that we all could
Ooh.
visit? Or,
Like-
understand this is what is the starting point, or this is how an operation exists and is 7,000 square feet appropriate, is 2,000 appropriate for a tasting room, et cetera. So I think scalability is something I struggle with. A picture is, better than 1,000 words to me.
Suggesting a field trip to a winery?
I don't know which one, but.
Oh, well,
Deb's on board. Yeah.
You would definitely have to see a few to really understand, I think.
Yeah, yeah,
Acreage size too.
That was a
yeah,
sure,
yes.
yeah.
We need a bus.
Yeah, we need a bus. Yeah, I was thinking the
I'll
same
work
thing.
on that.
I was thinking of going around. I'm familiar with a few, but not enough. So a sample of, does everybody just want to go and visit two, not the same two, or I mean,
If I came up with a couple suggestions that
Yes.
might be in our criteria, at least to start with,
Mhm.
and then send that list to everybody and
Yeah.
you do what you can.
yeah, because I think for Whitewater Township, the rural character is really important. They want the peace and quiet of nature around them. That's why they kind of moved here. We understand farm noise because we make farm noise. We know all about that. But the noise of people is what we were trying to get away from. So if we have, couple, if you probably know more because you've been doing this a while. But
It's been a long time, but I can find them.
yeah,
Do you think there's a disconnect? I could see your face with the 7,000 and like everything else, that's it. And I can just envision farms. I own a farm with a lot of buildings that add up to a lot of square footage. And if I'm gonna try to do this, and a lot of those buildings might not have anything to do with it, they just might be support to the agriculture in other ways.
Yeah.
How are you gonna find 20 acres that has nothing on it?
Yeah, so that might
there-
be it. That might have been a little disconnect with,
Yeah.
I mean, not to say that, yeah. And unless you're adaptive reusing a building to do it, to keep the square footage you have. So that's something I think we really got to look at. I would say that also restricting the tasting room to 2,000 square foot, when you're building up to 7,000 new square footage, it's very difficult to say, because then you're getting into architecture, and I know what you're describing. You want a nice little, you want the building to deconstruct and it to be, but someone might say, I'm just building a pole barn and it's going to be open, and I'm going to,
I want an open concept.
I want an open concept. So
Or that's
Yeah.
segregated, or I want,
that, to me, that gets into the legality of being able to determine what that is. So I understand what you're saying, but it might be problematic to get that into a language so you could tell people how they're going to build their little.
what they're gonna do inside.
yeah, you can do anything you want. It's just the footprint of the tasting room. I mean, that's why,
Yep.
I'm
But
if
if
you
they do
go,
it inside, if it's 2,000 square foot or if it's 4,000 square foot, you're still looking at a pole barn. So it really doesn't get you what you're looking for. I think you're considering a smaller, like, part of a larger building, or maybe you're not. I was trying to understand what you're,
have you ever been, I hate to say, have you been to Town Line Cider?
I've been by it. I've never
Okay,
been
you
to
need,
it.
if you went in, you'd understand.
But Town Line might be the perfect vision for what you see these to be,
Yeah.
but can you legally ask people to do
There's a
that?
million ways to do it.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's,
A
that-
million ways to do it.
that's what I think, and your people want an experience, they want a view, and depending upon the property, that's how you design your building. But some people, they could have like a 7,000 square foot house and it would be a ranch. And that's, you,
Yeah, it kind of goes back to what we're planning on doing, is taking this to the next level
Yeah.
and having someone review it.
Yeah.
With a legal
But-
point of view, and
So
yeah,
is this,
I think we're going in that direction.
Randy, is this right? And Deb, we have no max building coverage for anything except C1 and N1? Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Number two.
And, because you'll send that to me,
Mhm.
right? This packet and the one we have now.
Can you send me the packet electronically?
Then can you also put in there for them to review doing it by a percentage versus
Yeah.
a 7,000 square foot?
Yeah.
Because are we shooting ourselves in the foot by limiting farms that might already have a lot of pre-existing buildings or?
I would ask on just that. What about a farm that has pre-existing?
Because we do say that we'll grandfather in you to utilize a building
Right.
that's already there, but what if there's multiple buildings and you only want to use this building, but these other ones are on the property for other purposes?
That was why we kind of scaled that one draw. We took a 20-acre site, basically threw some trees on it, the building, that was about the right certain percentage rather than 7,000 square feet because then.
I guess maybe I just didn't understand that.
Okay.
I don't know, but so yeah, maybe we are better to do
Yeah, and could we add,
percentage.
Yeah.
Especially that doesn't matter if it's 20 acres or 200 acres.
Right, right.
Right, because then what if somebody has more room? They have more room to have a bigger building there.
Huge tent, lots of porta potties and parking.
yeah,
Yeah. Okay, all right, moving right along, Giffords Webster zoning ordinance review. So we opted because it was not in in their original, proposal to do an additional, meeting. They'll be attending the public hearing. If, yeah.
As well as board.
So we opted to go through what is hopefully the final edit of this first bundle on our own at this meeting.
So I would just add that the decision would be to go to public hearing with this. And there could still be changes made, after.
Even after the public.
Yeah, so I mean, I've seen a couple of small things in here to fix, but I wouldn't necessarily want to do another version of this myself. But
I just,
which,
this is bundle number one. of
right,
yeah, it's.
Five.
right.
So you're, which bundle are you looking at right now?
We
You're
are
looking at
beginning with condo development regulations.
Okay. Can we just go through it and ask if people have any
Mm-hmm,
page by page?
right.
So two big changes to this is the cluster option and some perimeter landscaping. Everything else hasn't changed very much in this section from what's in the current ordinance.
I just had a question. It's page 5 of their bundle, page 24 of our packet. Line or item 14. I don't know what a common element is. It says required landscape perimeter tree plantings shall be provided along the outer perimeter of the condos, entire parcel, blah, blah, blah.
It's a common space owned by the.
Okay, okay. Okay. And then in table 8.05, point C, point 2, point C, are we including public water and sewer, public sewer or public water only just in case at some point?
Yeah.
We have access to that?
Technically public water.
Okay.
And I would mention that we sent an email to Andy requesting a copy of a clean version of the new proposed.
The overlay?
No, of
Oh.
all these.
Oh, yeah.
sections, so that it might be easier to read. It's kind of hard to read through there. That's strike it. So that would be in the packet. So I'll let you review.
I think that was all I had. Everybody feel free to hop in if you had any questions about this first part of the condo development standards.
I appreciate the way they laid out everything here from readings like over.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Easy to follow what we talked about.
Right.
Changed.
The color coding and all that.
I like who numbered the pages 8 and 38. I mean,
Yeah.
was that you?
Yeah, well, that's, so the larger number is the page number of our packet.
The smaller number.
The,
Or,
I mean, larger in terms of
oh,
actual number itself, the, 35 versus 5. But you're right, smaller.
so are we moving on to the next bundle?
Nobody had anything for this one? Okay, so the next bundle is development process section update.
Yep. I have 2, 3, maybe. Not. I can, some are just technical on page 8, 38, 1204 standards for decisions. This is just grammar. Line 2, starting with topography, the size and type of the lot or unit, the character of adjoining property. Should that be properties? Because there's probably more than one.
Right.
Just change it to that. And then on G, under the same 1204, loading and non-loading areas and outside storage areas, including areas for the storage of trash. Shall be screened, but I was wondering if they could add in there, concrete slabs, trash receptacles on slabs.
And located on concrete pads.
Yes, on G. We have it written in other areas, but not in this one. And I was wondering if we could add it here.
And located on concrete pads. Okay.
Where did you add that in that sentence?
I guess, before unless modified by the planning commission. So,
On G,
yeah,
unless, okay. So no less than 6 feet in height on concrete slab.
are we requiring it? Why do we want them to be on concrete slabs?
That's kind of the norm now in ordinances. And we have it written in other locations, just not in this one. Like, yeah, for campgrounds, you need to have concrete slabs and screening around it.
To avoid a situation just behind our
Mhm.
wall here.
Mhm.
Then the only other one I had was page 939, you flip it. For some reason I put, is this a choice? On K, the new J, it says subdivision control ordinance and county road commission or township private road standard. So do they have a choice between those two, or
It's probably whichever one takes precedence, right?
with do you want to put that in there? Because if I read this just not knowing anything, which I can raise my hand to, I wouldn't know exactly what they meant there. I would assume township, but if you don't know anything about,
That should be private road ordinance specifications. Well, they kind of link back and forth,
Mm-hmm.
so maybe standard should be ordinance.
When would the county road commission come into it?
Standards, the design standards in our. private
Oh, okay.
Link to what the county requires.
like, curb cuts on to a main road and the site
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
from the corner, things like that.
Okay.
But so you think township private road ordinance?
Yep.
And cross out standard specifications?
Yep.
Okay,
Pretty much.
okay, that makes more sense. So leave the or in there as or and.
We could do and/or. Because like you said, they might have an interface with the county road.
Yeah.
There's a link to the county standards in the property ordinance
Okay,
and what works.
okay.
And and then I'm not sure, does this go all the way up to page 13? I'm not-
Mhm.
Um, number 11 on page 1343 from the top, alterations to the off-street parking layout or installation of pavement. The last line, or if necessary, has been modified to meet the ordinance requirements for the building and or uses. Does modified mean increased number or just?
I'm sorry, where are you?
On page 1343 on number 11. And I have to understand English and legal words.
Number 11, okay.
Alterations to the off-street. The last line is, it starts with the phrase is, or if necessary, has been modified to meet the ordinance requirements for the building and or use. Does modified mean increased or decreased? Or, I mean, what is modified? Does it matter?
It can be either increase or decrease.
Right, it's just based on the ordinance requirements for the building.
Okay. And then on 13E, is that in this section? On page 1949. If the special, section 1312 crossed out security requirement, duration of special land use approval, E. If the special land uses site plan approval has expired in accordance with section 1207. I was just wondering, is 1207 the right number? Because they've changed everything so much. I don't even know if it's going back to the right one. It was hard for me to follow. 1207 is on page 1040.
Yeah, I think it's correct because they talk about site plan approval validity. That's what 12.07 is. If substantial construction is defined in this ordinance.
So
Does
it's
not
just-
commence within 1 year. So I think it's the right one.
Okay. When I saw it all mostly crossed out, I was beginning to wonder.
Right.
Does anybody else, I've gone through a lot of pages. Does anybody else have any? Through the first 5-6 pages. I do have some more, but I don't want to read going through everybody else's.
Keep going.
Page 2050. 13.15 construction code permits. E, they crossed out most of it. And it says move to new section 313 above and remove the last 4 words of item E. So 313 would be on page 19, apparently. Oh, 313, not 1313.
Is it a typo? I don't have a 313.
That's what I'm saying.
Way out.
Sometimes when you want to go back to something, it's not there. So. It says 313 above.
I think they mean, I think it's 13.12. There's an E there if the special land use site plan approval has expired in accordance with 12.07.
Repeat that, please.
I
13.
think it should be 13.12. You go down to E, it's in yellow. And it says if the special land use site plan approval has expired in accordance with 12.07, which is what this was talking about, if construction has not commenced and proceeded meaningfully toward completion within 1 year, that it expires.
What pages are you on?
So from 2050, right, 13.15E, I believe has been moved to 13.12, which is on the previous page, page 19.
Page 19. 313.
I think it should be 13.12, 1312.
Which is moved from 1315. Okay, yeah, I think that may be it. It says should be 1312, and then
I think so. I'll double check
check
with
with
them.
them. But says, and remove the last 4 words of item E, which would be in accordance with section, and just say if the special land use site plan approval has expired.
I don't know. That one's a little cryptic.
So maybe just kind of put question mark by that one.
Yeah.
Wish I had my red pen.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Which I think they removed, and so we don't know if they've been removed. We can't tell.
Yeah, and one. And then on 2252, page 2252, just above the sexually oriented businesses, because I just want to say that. C, or O, I'm sorry, got my glasses on, O. It says, in the event that the planning commission determines that noise generation may be disturbing to neighbors or that the location of the establishments is in an area where a trespass on adjacent properties is likely to occur, then the planning commission may require that fencing and planning. And I think this is in reference to bed and breakfasts. Yes, it is. So I was thinking that we should change the word, then the planning commission may, and just say will require fencing, because a lot of people travel with their pets now, their dogs, and if you have an open space and your dog gets out, then it runs around to the neighborhood, and some dogs are friendly, but some dogs interact in a negative way and they start fighting. It's really hard to break up a dog fight. I was thinking a fence would kind of help keep that safety in the neighborhood. To go from the word may.
Would they be coming in for site plan review? Yeah, so we could require it then. I don't know if we need to make that change.
Well, if you're going to require it, why wouldn't you just?
Right, no, I understand what you're
Mhm.
saying.
I've just, I've known people that have incidents with dogs, and if you can avoid them, it's great. But entirely up to the discussion here. Those were my thoughts. If
May,
You run and show,
right,
may not have to.
right. I'm inclined to leave it as it is.
Yeah.
Anybody else have an opinion?
If you're in a neighborhood, yeah. Well, you don't,
Well, I think we have the opportunity to, to require it when we're reviewing the special use permit and site plan.
Okay, so your may is, so it's shall and will, and then may or what, I don't know the
Or
verb.
may not.
Yeah, or may not. That's what, that was my only thing. Okay. And then on page 2555, and this, on this page here, it's just formatting. They left a space in between like 3 and 4, and then they get to 5, 6, 7, and they didn't leave the spaces in between the sections. And they didn't do it, the indentation that they did on some of the other pages. And I think that's all I have. Yes.
Anybody else have anything for the development process memo? Okay, so we'll move on to the PUD section update. I have to admit, I really only looked at the highlighted stuff. I didn't look at the.
Which page does that start with?
I'm sorry, it starts, what's that? It's brutal. It is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Page, well, it's my page 63
Okay.
of the packet.
All right. We at the 10?
Almost. Right.
Just a reminder.
How much more of this do we have? Well, we really need to get to the, we need to select. Okay, this is the last one. Can I have a motion to extend the meeting beyond the 3-hour mark?
So moved.
Can we take a short break?
Sure. Let's, okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, let's take a 5-minute break.
And so we're returning to page 63.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Very forgotten.
Not like her handwriting, just. And just was in a pinch there. Like, have you ever had a name push? In all the years you've been?
I did, yeah.
It may be in the drawer.
Well, it could be.
Like a real one?
This is custom. I've had 2 in one night, so.
Like names.
See that? Mhm.
You have to vote about after this. So there's
Oh,
one
darn.
off,
Okay,
You know,
thanks. Oh, yeah, this one didn't, the PUD didn't have much change.
and my deadline to get this in the paper is gonna be April 16th. I need everything. Or sooner.
You need the clean
I
copy?
need the clean stuff by the 16th.
Okay.
So that I can, the notice of paper, I mean, if you get that line, if I can get it sooner, that's better. But I'll have to post it on the website and I do this paper.
You're unmuted now.
Okay,
you say-
PUD memo.
Okay.
Begins on page 63 of the packet.
I have one on page 971. For me, sometimes I just, I want to make sure I understand it. C, residential density, item 2, to determine the net acreage of a piece of property, verify with section 7.07D. And I'm going back to 7.07, it's minimum preserved open space. There's no.
There's no
ABC.
D.
There's no A. Maybe 7.0. I just don't know
Right?
where it's going. So,
Good catch.
I'm always in a focus group. No, it's people who don't see things the way other people do. Or wrong.
Anything else for PUD? Okay, we'll move on to the COPUD. And we're going to include a map of the overlay, is that right?
Oh,
It's actually all the packages starting on 72.
I had a question. Is this the map that matches the overlay? Okay.
So is it where would you include the map? Would it be included with the zoning map? Okay,
Change
okay,
to show this as an overlay zone.
okay. And what about our split zoned properties? Is it gonna go to property lines or is it just going to,
This all goes.
okay,
This map is, there's no, it's an overlay zone that falls on top of existing. It's additional requirements
right,
placed. on it.
right. I just wasn't sure if it was gonna follow the 500-foot line or if it was gonna go to,
And this is just a tangential question. Last year we were talking about reviewing all of the zoning areas to make them all in one, a parcel completely in one zone, not split between two zones. Is that something we're going to continue to do this year? Because we can add that to our annual report. So,
Something that needs to be done.
yeah. I mean, okay, so,
Some are easier than others to address.
yeah, so maybe we can put that under new business for next couple meetings or something, somewhere in there.
anything else for the COPUD? Is everybody still with me?
All good.
Okay, so we need to decide if we're ready to go to a public hearing with this bundle. And if so, we need a motion.
Make a motion to go to public hearing with bundle 1.
Second,
I second Sherman.
You're gonna date and time in the motion,
okay,
Meeting.
setting, are you actually scheduling?
next meeting is May 6th, 7 PM.
I was only prepared to advertise the public hearing.
Yes, okay,
Pardon me?
And the zoning administrator to advertise the public hearing for.
I believe at the last meeting, not this one, but the last one, Giffords Webster was going to prepare like the hearing notice itself that they wanted to have published. Is that still in play or do I just list, bundle, and just itemize each of these 4 bundles of 4 items. And I can do that and I'll attach the document with it. So
I'll ask them about that.
I thought they were going to have something prepped, but if not, it's not a big deal. I can do that. And it does state that it's ADA compliance is on every one of our public notices, just by the way. That if somebody has a hearing, that they can contact the clerk and get accommodations made.
All in favor? Do we need a roll call for this?
No.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes. Okay, so the next item is the private road ordinance update.
Well, the private road ordinance that the planning commission worked on went to the township board. The township board referred it to the attorney to review. The attorney was out on vacation for a couple of weeks, so that slowed things down a bit, but it is, we have comments back from him. And most of them are just typographical kind of issues. I do have a call with Jennifer from Gordy Fraser. The gentleman that we worked with has gone from, is no longer with Gordy Fraser, so Jennifer's picking this up and just ask her a couple questions. But I think we'll be able to go to the township board very shortly.
Great. Fence ordinance update.
Well, the fence ordinance went to the township board. They concurred with the planning commission's decision and rejected the amendment.
Okay. Do you think that's something that we want to have the ROWG start researching, or is it something that we can do within the planning
We
commission?
talked about having it be in a future bundle from.
Yeah,
right.
We wanted to have them help us address the whole range of issues with fences. There's a problem with just changing the height as proposed, and
Right.
more complicated than that.
Okay. Joint meeting topics. So, we will have the hopefully a draft of survey questions for them to review. What else do we need to go over at the joint meeting?
It's the survey questions together with the methodology of how you want to approach the survey in terms of online survey, whatever we're going to do, the methodology of it together with the questions in a draft form.
Okay.
And I believe also the discussion about the capital improvements plan, what the town board's looking for in that document.
The most of the proposals include their methodology, so I guess it would just be confirming that based on who we've selected. Okay. Drafts of research methodology and the CIP.
I think methodology includes some of the details of the mechanics of it. Is it being mailed out to people? Are we using cards that people are sent with a code?
Mhm.
You know, and there's lots of ways to do that. And some of that's described in the proposals.
Does anybody have any other topics for the joint meeting?
The Frank Highmore proposal regarding the minimum size on an ag lot.
Division.
Thank you. Thank you. And I had, maybe we should revisit the planning commission Zoom participation question. It's been brought up multiple times, and the board can make a decision based upon what Carl Robel brought in, and we can discuss it at the board meeting, the joint meeting. And then I know this is inherent in the joint meeting, but I would like to know what the board, what they want to accomplish this year, what their mission is. We've designated a list of things that we want to do. Is there something that they want us, or they could use us to help them with, that we aren't aware of yet? I want to know what's coming in,
Okay.
planning out our time.
And then do we want to wait to come up with dates?
I think so, personally.
Okay.
My thought is, let's get through the meeting in May and see where we're at, and when do you want to schedule something for June, or? I mean, the idea being that the survey is pretty well roughed out and we have a good idea of what the planning commission wants to do, and then present it to the town board and refine it and launch it.
Okay, so I'd like to put this out there that we might want to do a special meeting, as an additional meeting to get through the survey questions. Just kind of as a heads up, and we'll make the decision once I've got, schedule information from our vendor.
And that would be prior to the joint meeting. So
I'm just not sure that we can get through the survey questions in one meeting, I think it might take more than
Yeah.
one meeting. And originally, we were hoping to, well, anyways, yeah,
okay.
that's what I'm thinking.
So what's the timeline you're looking at then for?
I don't know yet. I
Oh.
won't know until I've spoken to the vendor
Okay.
that we select, because I don't know, I know what their schedule looked like when they put their proposal together, but that was a while ago.
Okay, so I guess we can discuss that in new business. That we're going to the STR survey vendor selection. Do you want to?
Mhm.
So, okay.
Okay. Okay, so the short-term rental vendor selection, I included the memo that I sent to Whitewater Township board in case you wanted to click on the links to get more background information from the 4 vendors. And the approved not to exceed for our survey is that was approved by the board is $20,000. So I don't know do we feel like we need to go through each one of the proposals, or have you all done that on your own and we can discuss, or?
I'm leaning towards one, but I don't want to just say that, because it's for me, what I'm interested in is the timeline. Who can do it for us the best and the quickest? And it appears that there's one. I guess I should just say Epic MRA, or I think that was the one. The one out of Lansing.
Yes, that's Epic MRA.
Yeah, because they said that they could do a phone sample.
So page 104 of our packet is the sort of the timeline that they gave us. And they do a combination of an online and paper survey and a phone call survey. So they take a smaller pool of people to do the phone surveys, and they use that as kind of a double check or a standard against which they can compare the responses that they get from the online and paper surveys that are returned. And it allows them to kind of standardize the responses that they're getting in case there's been any, sort of anything out. I don't know how to put it. Can you help me?
Well, I think and I've, for disclosure here, I worked with them before in Peninsula Township when we did the first survey in 2021 and asked a lot of development questions. And what they were stressing was the randomness of the phone survey of having value, because that is, you can have 500 responses, but if it's not random, you don't really have a good picture of the response rate. You have people that are drawn to complete the survey. You have potentially people that are filling multiple surveys out. You do the phone survey, you are randomly selecting individuals to respond. And apparently they said 100 would be adequate for our population size. Confidence interval. So
Mhm.
I'm rusty on my statistics, but that seems to be respectable in terms of then the idea was to do both a phone survey and a paper survey. I mean, just reaching 100 people, even though it may be statistically valid, leaves a lot of people feeling left out. So if you can do a companion survey to that with the same questions and then put that out there, then everyone has a chance to weigh in on the issues. And you know, it'd be interesting to see how the results vary, but I think they would take the stock in the questions that are generated or the answers from the phone survey, but
Right. And I believe that, so theirs would be, the phone survey and then mainly an online survey. And there would be paper copies available at the town hall. And so what would be mailed out would be a card that has a code on it, to allow you to access the survey. And I
Yes,
think,
on page 103,
yeah.
under this approach, and it says unique, the user ID would be unique to each household.
But multiple members of the same household can complete the survey. So, and that's where the phone survey comes in to help them figure out if things are becoming skewed by that.
Yeah, the next paragraph, it says that so that MRA should residents have questions, concerns, or the need to locate a misplaced user ID, as well as directions as to where and when residents could obtain printed copies of the survey made available by the township. To me, that's important because not everybody has internet. And I think, you know, so how I would like to know if that, those copies would have a unique user ID on the printed copy that's here.
I think you'd have to write in your code, whatever was on your card.
So, yeah, that they lost their card. Because this is say if they misplaced their user ID, they would have to come in. On page 103, the fourth paragraph. So that's the kind of question I had in my mind about that. If someone came in, you know, how would we know that? Like I couldn't come in 5 times, you know.
Right, so
Not
they'd
that
have
I-
to, they'd have to contact Epic to get a new code if they've lost their card.
Yeah.
And then, but then, yeah, I mean, someone else from the household could come in and use that same code. We'd have to look into making sure that the same person isn't coming in and getting the paper copy. I see your concern.
Yeah, and people you don't want them to sign their name, but maybe their survey could have like a number on it and there could be a different sheet with the survey given to this person. And then if we needed to cross-reference any of them that were received with the in-person survey, maybe we could do that.
Okay, we can talk to them about that.
Yeah.
This Epic was, I think, the one that I was leaning towards as well. I really like the phone survey, in addition to the online. And the fact that Peninsula Township has hired them more than once to do surveys, so apparently they were happy enough with them the first time that they hired them a second time. And they're fairly local. I mean, they're not as local as Networks Northwest, but Networks Northwest proposal was I felt very
General. There wasn't any.
general, and it had us creating the survey questions, which is exactly what we're trying to avoid.
Yeah.
So what we're going to discuss is general topics for the survey questions, and then they will create the actual questions based on their experience, so that we've got somebody objective coming up with them, not us.
So, does anybody else have any other companies that they would like to work with or?
Just say again, and I worked with so they were very, very helpful and very good to work with. They were very helpful, particularly in crafting the questions so that there was the elimination of bias in the question, because even if you're totally pure of heart, you can still have a bias to your question. And having them look at it and say, no, you're leading them in one way or the other.
Yeah.
Did you get a chance to look at the questions in their inventory?
Oh, no, we, in Peninsula, we crafted them ourselves. The
Okay.
first time it was, we had a list of ones, we gave them a draft, they came back and said, you know, do this, and other times they added a question that preceded the question we wanted to ask, like I mentioned this as an example before, there was the purchase of development rights program that they have over there, and it was coming up for renewal, and the obvious question was, do you support this? And they said, that's a good question, but before you ask them if they know about it. So that way, you know how much of an educational, it also frames the responses. People know about it, say this, people that don't know about it, say that. So you can take those answers and kind of get more than one piece of information from it.
In the two firms that were at the beginning of what you submitted, Reen, one said there were a certain number of pages of questions.
Mhm.
It was 2 pages or 4 pages, whatever it was. I didn't see anything from Epic that specifically said there's a document max or anything. And I'm most sensitive to the number of questions and the quality of questions.
So the table on page 106, it's not framed exactly the same way, but it does show us the difference in price in terms of approximate number of questions. So if, you know, for instance, if we're going to do 100 phone calls with a 10-minute interview, that's going to be 18 to 21 questions, you know, and so they framed it that way.
Okay.
So for, let's see, so for a 13 to 15-minute interview with 100 people, that would give them 26 to 35 questions. I think, I'm not sure that we want to go to a 13 to 15-minute interview. I'm not sure that people will stay on the phone that long. So I was kind of looking at the 11 to 12-minute, which would be 22 to 28. And then the other thing, which, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe the other thing that they do is depending on your response to a question, whether it's online or on the phone, you might get shifted to a different part of the survey. You know, it might skip over some questions based on how you answered one previously and take you down. For instance, if you say that you don't think Whitewater Township should allow short-term rentals, it might take you to the very end of survey. I don't know, but
Right.
just as an example.
They're basically trying to sample and make sure that, you know, the feedback that's coming from the paper responses matches pretty close to
Yep.
phone call.
So on that graph on page 106, it says approximate number of questions, including screening and demographic questions. So if we have 4 questions about your age group, where, you know, what district you live in, that's part of the 18 to 21 questions. So that's pretty short. And
I was looking at the 11 to 12, which is 22 to 28 questions.
yeah. Do you think that there's any extra questions to ask about the cidery winery ordinance, how people feel about that?
I don't know at this point. I'm not sure. You know, I think we'll know as we work through the questions and
Yes.
see, like, you know, are we getting the information that we need in order to move forward?
Yeah.
I think from looking at this, like the two that just do a mailed survey are kind of, they're kind of help for me, because I think that you just have to have an online option. So I think Epic was, I like that one, but I just have a question, I guess, on like. What are the, like, give me an example of the questions we're asking, like, is this gonna be modeled after what we just did at the school?
So
I'm
they
just
will be
wondering-
given the report. So they'll have the information that we've already gathered. I mean, as a sample question, it could be, I was looking at some other Michigan, short-term rental surveys, and one question is, do you feel that short-term rentals belong in this district, this is, in all the different districts, and you could say they should be allowed anywhere, or they should not be allowed in R1, or they should only be allowed in A1, things like that. So what we're trying to get at is, if we're creating a short-term rental ordinance, what are people's concerns, which would also build on the workshop, and how we might regulate.
Okay.
Is what I would say.
Could we say that from what the ROWG has done so far and what all the data we've collected so far, can we say like that we're writing it the plan is to write an ordinance with regulation? Are we to that point yet? And now we're collecting data on what that regulation should be? Or are we still teetering on whether we're gonna allow them or not? I guess I'm kind of confused there, because I feel like at the school, it seemed like there was the amount of people that showed up. It seemed to me like it was like majority there were like, yeah, we're for it, but like we could do this, but it needs regulation. Or are we not able to say that yet? Like, I don't know where we're at with that. Does anybody else feel like?
I think it's an open question.
Yeah.
As to what people think. They're not allowed currently, technically,
Correct.
in the township. We should ask people if they know that or not. For one thing, do they? Secondly, I think, you would ask them, what, if they are allowed, what are your major concerns about activities of short-term rentals?
So this is just,
Noise, sanitation, whatever, the choices.
I mean, I feel like that's what we did at the school. So this is just like additional to reach more people. than what we did at
This
the
would
school?
reach more people, yeah.
Yeah.
And it's anonymous, and so people might be more
Okay.
comfortable expressing themselves. So I think at this point, we're not going to say for sure that that it's a done deal, that we're definitely having one. We need more input.
Because then when I'm looking at your timeline, and so we get this back. And then after we get the stuff from the Michigan State and the information from here, then we should be able to collectively, as a planning commission, say whether we're gonna write one or whether we're gonna write to now allow them,
Mhm.
and then.
Mhm.
move from there.
Mhm.
Yep. So, okay. I want to make sure I understand, like,
At the end of it, does it go on a ballot? I'm just curious.
I don't think so. I think it's a public hearing,
Put it on the ballot.
it would be a public hearing, just like
right?
Well,
the winery.
it could be on the ballot, and then if there was a proposed ordinance that was adopted by the planning commission and the board, then somebody could referendum that.
Mhm.
Oh, okay.
But
Yeah.
that's the only way, but that's a specific ordinance then that is voted up or down.
Okay. All right. I just want to understand, like, that make sure that I'm understanding where we're exactly at. Because I do have people ask, like,
Mhm.
so
Yeah.
this is happening or not? It's like, well.
And then we have
people.
people,
Know completely, yeah.
and then we have people saying it seems like it's a done deal.
Exactly.
So,
Exactly.
yeah.
So it's like, I need to try to clarify what the
Mhm.
next step is and what we're still doing. So we're still getting the data. Got it.
Okay.
Got it.
S-
One of
So,
the things I read, I think it was in Cobalt, the first vendor stack, they said something about having questions that would identify in the survey whether you operated an STR or not. And then they went on in an explanation saying that it's important for the community to know where these STRs are located. And I'm thinking, well, that's a big leap from where Whitewater Township is right now. And I'm just wondering, in the survey, is that going to be something that Whitewater township is going to be interested in those, in framing questions like that? Or is it not? Good question.
Mm-hmm.
There's always that are operating short-term rentals in Whitewater Township now who don't live here. They wouldn't likely be contacted because they're not resident.
Yeah.
I know there are only a handful of them that are owned and operated by people that don't live here.
So we're I believe they're gonna be using the property tax and the voter registration. So they should hit people who don't live here with the property tax, right?
Phone survey. Have a proprietary
Right.
bank of phone that includes cell phones.
Yeah.
That is my name, so.
Yeah, and that's the other thing about the survey versus the workshop is we might get a different cross-section in terms of responses. So, yeah, I mean, given what happened at the workshop in terms of people not even wanting to fill out their name on a card, you know, and I'm not really sure that we'd get a good response rate to questions like that. I think we could ask something more general, like, like which district you live in, because then you'd know whether, because R1 is all on the water, right? Or waterways. Yeah. Versus, bigger properties that you get in the agricultural district. I think a question like that would probably be useful.
I think
It would be useful, but a lot of people don't know what district they live in.
Exactly, yeah.
A lot of people
So-
do not
So
know.
that's why we had the maps at the workshop, but I'm sure there's still people that don't know.
If they,
Yeah.
yeah, if they have to give their street and then you can tell them. Did you want to have, you said general categories or survey
Yeah.
questions that
Mhm.
you wanted us to ask about, and I think you've kind of brought some up. I don't know if you wrote them down.
Go ahead.
Oh, I don't remember what they said. I can, so, uh, did you want them to repeat what they wanted, what kind of questions they wanted, or they thought should be on there? And I have some, but I don't want
Are we
to.
gonna have a special meeting for questions?
Yeah, I just wanted to get a start on sort of a general idea to give them some direction. So I've got districts, which is problematic, as Deb stated.
Mine was exterior signage and neighborhood security.
Right.
How long have you owned property in our township?
Is it how long have you, or is it just
How long have you owned
lived
property here? Because a lot of people bought property 20 years ago, planning to retire here. They didn't plan to retire and have 3 STRs next door to them.
Mhm.
And then they moved up here and went, holy moly, this isn't what I signed up for years ago. Or it's LLCs that are buying up properties. Or, and it may be people that have owned here for years and years, or it may be people that have just recently moved here, knowing that we don't allow short-term rentals, and they're moving here because of that fact. And it's close to Traverse City. It's, they work in Traverse, they moved here because of the convenience, and they want to raise a family here.
Mhm.
So just
Okay.
some of the comments I've gotten in the past.
I think there's also a question around clustering. There isn't much data, if any data, to address that when people ask the question. And I don't know if that comes out through the survey or what, but perhaps some areas are more heavily sourcing STR in a community
Mhm.
than other areas. And I think that's an important part of the criteria.
So maybe the size of your property, how many acres half acre, quarter acre,
Eight,
single family home lot?
three.
Are we asking age?
Oh, I would imagine that'll probably come up in the demographics part, yeah.
Yeah.
One other comment about the joint meeting with the board. It may be an opportunity for them to have the new attorney, Peter Wendling, come in and meet everyone.
Hmm.
It's a suggestion.
I'm sorry, I'm like, meet a new attorney. It's like, ah.
I think that there should be some sort of topic in there about the horse shows and our connection with that. Support of it. So it's
Mhm.
how our township benefits from it or how it doesn't, and how it negatively affects us. There's definitely a link there that needs to be considered, I think, and talked about, because we're not just talking about short-term rentals for weekend rentals of people on the water, but we're
Right.
talking about 2 to 3 week stays, which are still a short-term rental for. That's a huge income for people.
Mhm.
I think that sometimes is overlooked, and I think it definitely needs to be a topic somehow. I don't know how you would ask those questions, but see how people think that impacts our community, and are we missing the boat by not supporting it, or
Mhm.
good or bad? I don't know.
Okay, yeah.
Have you adversely been affected by renters? And maybe if you have, how?
Right,
Because
because are these things that we could put,
To me, STR is just a dirty word for a lot of people and they don't even know why. It's just,
Yeah.
it's a stigma.
well, it's been created
Correct.
by the media.
Which there are problems with STRs, but
Bad renters or bad hosts, right? So,
And just, I think with all the,
And neighbors
all of it in the news right now too, I mean, it's everywhere in northern Michigan, Michigan itself, so. For sure.
anything else?
Sense of community, loss of sense of community when you don't know where you're in a transient environment. If you were living in a hotel, you'd know it's transient. You wouldn't know the person next to you tomorrow or the next day. But in rural areas, people like to know their neighbors more and support the schools through the children in the area, and short-term rental people don't have their children in school. And we're trying to support and keep this Mill Creek Academy open. If we lose, they're on a 5-year, I think, extension plan, and I don't know how they're doing, but at the end of 5 years, we'll know.
Think that there's another element to that where I hear people say that we're losing the ability to rent single family homes. And because an SDR is now in operation, and I don't know, how that would impact the single family home rental numbers in our township, but I would guess that, there's a number there that needs to be determined or needs to be understood. I don't know how you get to that in a survey, but it's something.
Okay, so long-term versus short-term renting.
Yes.
So I just have one, and I don't know how you phrase this in a question, but again, the issue of a out-of-town LLC buying property in Whitewater Township for the sole purpose of renting it. No local manager, no nothing, it's just a business transaction. And then that compared with a local resident who is renting out a home for, a couple months in the summer to supplement their income while they go camping or something.
Yeah, I think LLCs versus local owners, and then let them come up with the question.
Yeah.
Okay, I think that's a great start.
I add one more.
Uh-huh.
I think in the ROWG, you came up with a number of how many short-term rentals we already have in the community, be it motels, Silver Birch Resort, the High Point Golf Course. I mean, we already have overnight stay places
Mhm.
and, a couple different areas. I mean, I don't think any of them were 100% full in the last couple of years.
Right.
So do they realize how many we have currently that are available as technically a short-term rental or an overnight stay at the casino or Silver Birch Resort or some of the cabins that have been grandfathered in for short-term rentals or bed and breakfast in the area? I think there was a number in the ROWG, somebody did some factoring that you could
I think
actually.
Heidi looked
Do you,
into that.
do you realize we already have X number in the community, Just a thought.
Okay. Great. Acme master plan comments.
Well, there's a draft memo in your packet that describes, this was brought up at the last meeting that they would have the Acme plan. I did look at that and there's a couple of maps that are confusing to me. Look at the boundary. It looks like there's a gray area in between us. I think it's just a graphical problem, but I would like it clarified so we know what's on our adjacent boundary as far as planned land uses, both existing and proposed. So this is why you do this, so that you understand what your neighbor is planning, and pretty simple memo to them I think it's just a graphical problem.
That's what I thought too when I saw it. I thought, oh, they just shifted it so that you can see it. So that you can see the line, but
Yeah.
But the boundary is on the south, it's the same line,
yeah,
but
Yeah.
at east, it's not.
right.
What confused me on the east boundary is that they show a district for horse show, I think they called
Yeah,
it.
an overlay.
Yeah, an overlay, and I'd never seen that before. And I don't know what that means. Is that, truly horse show property, or is it something that's bigger? It includes people that are horse farms? I don't know.
Yeah.
It was just of interest to me.
Hmm.
I know that, or I've heard that it influences the short-term rentals in Whitewater Township.
Did we decide on which company we're gonna go with?
Oh my gosh. Oh my God.
Hey, help me on that one.
Holy cow. Oh my gosh.
No, it's okay.
We believe you.
No, it's not me. It's okay.
That is so
Thank you,
embarrassing.
Thank you, Scott.
Yeah.
We're like, yeah.
Oh, yeah. Enough about that.
That's why it's late.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it is late. Okay, so short-term rental survey vendor selection, are we ready to make a motion, or do you want to continue discussion about the different proposals?
I'm ready.
I'll make a motion to MRA to do our survey.
Second merchant.
Let's do,
Their quotes or an amount stated in motion or no?
Or up to.
no, well, yeah, not to exceed $20,000, which is our budget. But
Just to hire Epic and our.
yeah,
Could be less than that.
right.
For their quote.
Per their proposal dated March 4th, 2026.
Up to $20,000.
Right, not to exceed $20,000. Let's do a roll call vote.
Yes. German,
Aye.
Trumbull,
Yes.
Pelton, and yes, Merchant, Stratton,
Yes,
Milnick,
Yes.
Rebound.
Yes.
the motion passes. Okay, I will contact them tomorrow. There was, you and I discussed something that I need to try to get from them before Linda leaves. What was it?
It'll come to you about 3 hours from now.
Yeah. Okay, we'll come back to that.
Yeah, you can. Does it, would it be something that we need to discuss, or can the two of you if it's a detail that you guys can.
Yeah, no, I think it's a detail.
Okay.
Okay, our next meeting is May 6th. I will let you know after I speak with them, if we're gonna try to do a special meeting before then, or immediately after that. And, the floor is open for public comment. Thank you for sticking it out.
Randy Steelman from Chris Road. I was thinking, some of the setback things, I think you guys got through it a little better, but when you're talking about your thing, I feel like 100 foot, if you said 100 foot from here, 100 foot from there, you're pushing out a lot of little farmers and stuff. I get it, 100 foot for kind of a, we don't want the buildings and the business happening there, but got to be reasonable with that stuff. Structures would definitely be in setbacks on those things, and you guys discussed that, but a couple of you really get it, and a few of you are struggling with that. 7,000 foot building space on a property, that's like a house and a barn. That's it. I don't know if you guys realize that, but my house is 3,000 square feet, and my barn is 3,000 square feet, and that's nothing to a farmer. You couldn't park tractors in a barn that small half the time. So like they said, it's going to have to be something different there with that. Yeah, and limiting the size is sort of unnecessary if you limit, the building limits, how many people can go in it or whatever, all that stuff. You guys got through a lot of that stuff in the end. I wanted to talk about the STR stuff. I don't know if it's an important thing, but the LLC stuff, I have a couple of rentals myself, and they are LLCs, and I take care of them. I'm close. I'm not a big entity or anything. It's to protect. A lot of LLCs are just to protect people, and also trusts and things like that. They're still yours, so it's not just businesses doing that. It's a legal thing so I don't lose my other house if somebody gets hurt in this house. So that's pretty common. And then a lot of this, I think you guys could save a lot of time, as Sadie she was kind of getting there. We might be wasting a bunch of time on these questions and wasting these good questions by sitting here going, do we want this? Do we not want this? I realize that there's a handful of people that are not getting the answer that they want. But the reality is this public here is overwhelmingly for STRs. So it's a matter of let's work on how we're going to regulate it. So I mean, for my constituency here. Also, the phone numbers thing, I don't understand how they're going to get the phone numbers to call the 100 people, because how do they know my phone number? Maybe that makes sense to somebody somewhere, but I'd worry that they'll call, 100 people on Skigmog or Island View, and they're going to get a very different perspective than most of the township. So if that happened, so there's that. I'm sorry. There's a lot, guys. Nice way to get through it and sit here. I was trying to be quick too, but structures back to Sadie's thing there. Structures could also be part of the buffer and things like that. I mean, if you got a building blocking you from the neighbor, and Michael understood it. I think Michael understands that the most out of everybody. I'm sure he's used to working with these things. But yeah, if I got a road and nothing over here, and I've got, houses over there, hey, we'll go half a mile away from that one and be 50 feet from this one. It just makes sense that you would work it however it needs to be done. So that's all I got tonight, guys. Thanks for working hard.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other discussion or comments from the PC?
I think special events should be brought up at some point. Just to add that in there, because we do have some things coming up, as Deb said.
Special events.
Just a special events ordinance.
Oh, ordinance.
And the
Yeah.
noise ordinance and.
Yeah, I did. I don't want to extend very long here. I looked into noise ordinance. I think it's covered right now. And Acme Township has verbatim what we have on our,
No kidding.
noise ordinance.
Think, well, I thought Acme had 60, but what I know you don't think people need to know the what's loud and what's not loud, but the 60 decibel lets me know what's loud. Because what I think is loud, the other person may think it's not loud at all.
Yeah, I just,
Or too loud.
yeah.
It's
and
a
It's definitely
starting
worth
point.
a discussion, probably not today, but,
Not today.
Not today, yes,
it's worth a discussion.
yes, okay.
Anything else?
I just have like a few more just a few thoughts. I just wanna. I appreciate that all of us working together on this, and I just wanna reiterate that like, there were, like Denise, you had made a comment that farmers say a lot that they're here to make money and they're not here for viewing, but I really disagree with that. Nobody's in farming because they don't enjoy the view themselves. I mean, that's the heart and soul of farming when it comes down to it, and I just, we're trying to encourage people to continue farming. Everybody wants people to stay in farming or come to our community and buy these farms that are gonna be going up for sale because the industry is so bad right now. I mean, the last three, I don't have to talk to you about that, but
Yeah.
if you just run the numbers by setting all these, by not having an open mind sometimes, I feel like, and trying to overregulate and restrict things. I understand the concerns, our main concerns are keeping a rural character and outdoor events getting too large, and I agree with that, but I think also we need to shift our focus from the day-to-day operational benefits of allowing wineries and versus just the events and what that might be, how that might be detrimental to us. I mean, just think about the numbers, if we're saying 20 acres and you want a young farmer to come in because somebody's selling out, which is going to happen in the next 10 years, I guarantee it. And you want them to buy 20 acres to put a winery in at $12,000 to $15,000 an acre. And then they need to plant grapes for 20 grand an acre to plant grapes, plus build a building that's large enough for production and tasting. That's a multi-million-dollar investment that you're asking people my age, middle age, to do. But then you're gonna restrict them by saying they can only have a 2,000 square foot tasting room. There's no way. How are they gonna make their payments? I understand that you want to keep the rural character, but I really don't think our township is going to become Peninsula Township. I mean, we don't have to look at these wineries as being these big hoity places. And I think that by not encouraging young people to come in and be creative with their agritourism ideas, there's just so many more opportunities. And I think sometimes we're falling short by trying to look at all these other wineries and picturing that winery in our township because they don't all have to be the same. And there's so much more opportunity to be creative, whether you're just having cider and wine to keep a family there and you present more of a family atmosphere. Most of those wineries on the peninsula that are ginormous are not family focused. They're focused on tourism. They're focused on adults only. And I don't think that's what our township is going to become. But if we're being too restrictive, it's just never going to work out. It's never, the numbers don't run and people won't do it. And people won't be encouraged to open a winery here because you can't put it in a box. You can't say, you can open a winery here, but it has to look just like town wines. Why do that? Nobody's what's the point of going to a winery if you just went to it a mile down the road? Don't you want everyone to look different and allow creativity? So I feel like sometimes we're focusing too much on that and what our vision of a winery might be, but it can be so many different things. And if you go to some of these agritourism conferences that they're putting on for young farmers to promote young farmers, it's more than just winery. And I guarantee you, we're gonna get other farmers in here in the next few years asking us to write ordinance to allow them to do other things, to keep things farming. So I just wanna say that, I think just there's gotta be an open mind there too, and to think really hard about the numbers and the amount of money it takes and the time and what you're constricting people to do. And sometimes this not be feasible. So it's gotta be profitable too for anybody young to take this on and to wanna do it, so. All I gotta say. I guess.
Thanks, Sadie. Anybody else? Okay. Do we have anything to report on continuing education? We've got the information that Deb sent us.
I suggest you go out and read those House bills that are in the Senate. And I actually emailed it all to everybody on the board at the end of February. I get a write-up every month from Mary Riley at Michigan State, and it has court cases and all of those House bills are in that. I think I sent it maybe the 26th of February.
You sent it to the commission too?
Yeah, I sent it
Okay.
to all of you guys. So I can resend it as well, but all of those potential House bills are in there. But it's the one about the 60 days that would probably impact us the most. And training's coming up. Some people are signed up for April. Yippee, citizen planner.
That's 2 weeks. Yeah.
Can I have a motion to adjourn?
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
All in favor?
All right.
Any opposed? All right, we are adjourned
At what time?
at 10:57.